Jim, there to watch you.
Now, here's Jim Hill and Bill Gunter. About the analytics. On 106.5, the game.
All right, you're up.
Hello, Tuesday. Cowboys fans. Oh, no. Patrick, is that going to immediately put you in a bad mood? What happened last night? 41-21. No, you're good?
No, that doesn't bother me. What bothered me is that our defense is terrible, and we were supposed to be the best defense in the NFL.
Yeah, how did that happen?
I don't know. It's just the most. They're just overhyped. They're good on the front four, but they don't do anything to help. They just rely on the front four to get home on every play, and when it doesn't happen, we're just doomed. Our linebackers are awful, and yeah, we stink.
Getting out some Washington football team.
The Cowboys can do whatever they want. I'm more concerned about us. The Cowboys are good. They're a good team. They're going to win the division. They can score.
Dak Prescott looked real good last night, 41-21 over the Eagles. They look legit. Watched a little Peyton and Eli. I like Eli getting his hips going like Shakira. The highlight, I think, last night, doing the Dak Prescott warm-up that I think it was – who made that famous? Was that Drew Brees who made that famous, Bill?
I thought it was Dak that actually made it famous. Am I wrong?
Was it Dak in the first one, Patrick?
It was last year he was doing that, yeah.
Right. But I feel like, I've seen other guys do it, and I thought it might have been Drew Brees that did it first. But no, it was Dak who did it first.
Yeah. I don't know. Jameis has been doing all sorts of weird stuff like that in the last couple of years, too.
He doesn't even really – he's not at their level, but we can ignore him a little bit. How about DC, LeVar, Ron from Lake Marion, David already up with us on the live video stream. Great to hear you guys. Great to see you guys. Ron says that caller yesterday made Bill madder than a Clemson player punching an NC State frat boy after a loss. So wait a second. I didn't see a punch. I saw some – it looked like heated words were exchanged. Was there an actual punch, Bill?
I don't think so.
Field celebration? Yeah. Easy, Ron.
Yeah, not only that, I wasn't the one that was upset or mad. I'm just saying. Bad question. That's all I'm saying.
803-404-6100 if you would like to join the program. I wonder what day two will bring after the 16-10 Kentucky loss. Had a chance to digest it 24 hours more. Do you think some of the raw emotion will be gone, Bill? Do you think sometimes, we've seen it go the other way too, right? Through the years, I feel like we've seen Gamecock fans get over a loss, move on, and kind of geared towards the positive. But I feel like we've seen also the exact opposite, where people almost get more and more upset about a game that could have been won or some opportunities lost and kind of fester instead of move on and feel better about it.
Yeah, I actually I think some of it will be in regards to how Shane Beamer handles it today at the press conference. South Carolina will be a 9-point favorite this weekend, so maybe some of the attention won't necessarily be on the Troy game like it should. It'll still be focused in a little bit on what happened last week with the offense and what changes have got to be made in the offensive line and so forth and so on. And I don't know what answers people want today. I think that's the question is as a fan, to make you feel better, what do you want to hear? Like, do you want to hear Beamer come out and say, yeah, we stink? Do you want to hear him come out and say, oh, there's going to be mass changes, 5 new offensive linemen? We're just changes everywhere. Changes. Does it matter what he says? Are you that fan? It's coach speak to me, Tim. I don't know we're not at practice. I don't know what goes on behind the practice doors. I don't know what Shane Beamer says today that necessarily makes the fan base feel better. Maybe there is something where people go, oh, okay, all right, I'm back on board. I don't think people are necessarily jumping off. I think they're upset about one loss. I don't think people are heading for the exits. But what I do wonder is, how this gets handled today. It's such an interesting world that you and I have really kind of grown up on in the last 20 years with the way that coaches' press conferences can be carried. Lou Holtz, I'm not sure I ever really took notice when I was in college during the Lou Holtz era of his Tuesday press conference. I don't even know if he had it on Tuesday. I just assume he had.
Monday.
I don't know if fans went out of the way. The growth of the internet, of things like Twitter and being able to live stream videos and have basically instant access to hear what your head coach says. It's all kind of interesting because I think it's made these press conferences more relatable to fans now who want to hear what their head coach is going to say. Do you agree with me? 20 years ago, do you think fans were glued to what Lou Holtz was saying in 2001 after every press conference?
No, not like it is today. But I don't think there are a bunch of people glued to what Shane Beamer say today necessarily, especially with Troy coming up. And Scott wanted to point out that the Troy line is down to 7. Okay. Also on the Cool Care Heating and Air text line, Gamecock Larry wanted to wish us all a good morning. At 3:09 this morning, he got someone to send this text. Not mad, but disappointed. 3 turnovers, 3 times to start a drive on the opponent's side of the field, 0 points. But he concludes with some optimism. We could be Florida State, Texas A&M, Clemson. I'm awake and got to talk to him. That's how he ended his text. Oh, boy. So that means
we could beat Florida State?
No, it says at least.
Oh, we could be Florida State. I got you.
Gene on the other side of the good fan spectrum this morning says, moving on, ready for basketball. Gamecock Will, we are who we thought we are.
And that's fair. That may very well. I wonder how many people accept that. That was the Vegas line was for, and that there were a lot of questions, and that I think I said 6. I think Patrick said 5 in the season win total. Tennessee Patrick, you didn't pick Kentucky as a victory. I'm not sure if I did or not. I don't know how we went game by game, but yeah, I mean that's part of it too. Are people just accepting of, hey, it's a rebuild? You know what? We had a great opportunity on Saturday night. We didn't get it done, but we've known all along this is going to take 3 or 4 years.
So Patrick, we didn't get to hear from you. You're doing the old close and open, working for Heath's show last night. We didn't get to talk to you yesterday. What are your thoughts about the 16-10 Carolina loss? And I guess maybe your feelings might be the better gauge this morning. How are you feeling about Gamecock football to this point?
Well, I was just feeling bummed because it wasn't a fun product. When you can't do anything on offense, it's not fun to watch. Like, I would rather score 49 points but lose 56-49. Like those are actually entertaining to watch when you're just completely incapable of doing anything because your offensive line just can't move anybody and can't block the right guy. I mean, it started at the very beginning, the first sack where Ja'Kai Moore just down blocks and the defensive end just runs right past him. And I mean, there's literally nothing Luke Doty can do in that situation. So I don't know that it's going to be fixed this year. There's nothing Shane Beamer is really going to say today. I mean, what's he going to say? Yeah, well, there's really nothing to do now. Maybe we'll run RPOs and read options strictly and just make sure that the ball's out quickly because we can't hold a block. And the running game's just not really going to be there like we thought it was. So we'll just do quick passes and try and scheme our way around it best we can. But we just got to attack the transfer portal and get these offensive line recruits. And I mean, there's nothing that's going to change that. So I'm not totally surprised because I did pick 5 wins, and I think the next 3 games are the most winnable games. After that, the most winnable game is probably Clemson at home because they stink. So that's the only saving grace for this whole weekend.
Taking shots. See, we're in a new place in this show that we've never been in. This show's what, 5+ years old, and for the entire 5-year run of the show, Clemson has been one of the dominant programs in college football. And now it's not. So I think Clemson fans were doing what you just did, Patrick. I don't think there's any need for a dig at this point. I think Clemson fans are willing to be their own.
Well, I was only slightly exaggerating.
Right.
That's what's sad about it.
That's what I'm saying. It's always been an exaggeration to take a shot at Clemson on this show in the 5-year history of it because there hadn't been much to take a shot about. This year is different, and man, we heard a different tone yesterday on the text line, especially just from Tiger fans, and it was odd for me. I don't know about you, Bill, but it was really odd to see that. And someone just hit us up about being 2-2 at the end of September. When's the last time both the Gamecocks and Clemson have done that? It has been a while for sure.
what you just said though about on the opening play or in the opening portion of the game where Ja'Kai Moore just blocks down and allows an edge rusher free, that's become the most mind-boggling thing, right? It would be hard to explain if they were physically, and they are at times, but it would be hard to explain if they're just getting manhandled up front. But you would kind of be able to explain that, okay, they're just not good. But the way they're just turning guys loose, the way they're just, it looks like the confusion on the offensive line of just simply, hey, here's a blitzer over here. We should pick that up. And then they simply don't do it. They block down or they block away, and that guy just comes free. That's become the most mind boggling thing out of all of it because it seems so simple. Like I'm 5'6", 160 pounds. I would get run over and be a speed bump if that, but it's still the common concept of I can see that and I'll be like, all right, I should block that guy. Like even if I just go over here and get in the way, I should. They're not even at times blocking guys. I go back to that East Carolina game where East Carolina would just simply put a guy on the edge, and Dylan Wanham would just crash down on the inside and block nobody, and the edge guy would just come right around the corner and have a free shot at Zev Nolan. And it feels like that hadn't been changed. That's where it's kind of, I think that's what bothers people the most is, look, I don't know. You expect them, you would hope, we all hope that they would be able to physically line up, run the football, dominate people up front. Tim, you brought up a good point yesterday. How much did having Adam Prentice back there at the fullback help in leading ways, being able to at least create a small hole and then Adam Prentice get in there and take on a linebacker and free Kevin Harris up? There's a lot of different things about this running game this year that we got Perry Orthone later today. Maybe he can give us a little bit more insight into what he saw from the running concepts last year versus running concepts this year. But yeah, it's all very head scratching when it comes to the offensive line and what exactly has happened there. And, I know Greg Atkins is getting a lot of the blame. I can't say it's all him. I think that it's got to be some scheme and what Marcus Satterfield's trying to do. And I still do feel like they're having a little bit of success when they try to go to the outside, when they try to go to the perimeter. Do you guys agree with that? Like maybe it was just Juju McDowell, but 26 carries, 58 yards. There ain't a whole lot of success anywhere, but I guess maybe I'm just being positive at 6:18 in the morning.
Anonymous texter doing the opposite. First year head coach, and it is showing up. I don't know how much that has to do with any of this. I get it that Beamer went for it on fourth down, and it didn't work out a couple of times in that ball game. But I'm more with you, Bill, about what you're talking about. Offensive line issues, offensive coordinator, I feel like deserves to own most of that responsibility or accountability, and the offensive line coach obviously as well. I think this is just a matter of coming up short. And I mean, how many different college towns in the country right now are talking to unhappy fans at this point? But to kind of Gamecock Larry's point, there are some talking to massively disappointed fan bases. I think it's almost kind of a sign of credit for Shane Beamer and the staff that Carolina fans got themselves to a place where they are really disappointed in that close loss to Kentucky because of just what this program's been the last couple of years. I mean, last year's final score, what was it against Kentucky? The 41-16?
15, 16, who knows, 18.
It was an absolute whipping. And again, going into the game, Patrick, you and I predicted losses. We predicted 5 wins on the season, certainly still on track for that. I see that the line is down to 7 this week against Troy. It's not a given by any stretch of the imagination. But those other games, Bill, you mentioned it yesterday. Missouri certainly seems more winnable now. Texas A&M, a ton more winnable, and they don't seem like anywhere close to the team that came in away at Bryce Stadium last year and just absolutely dominated. But from my standpoint, it's another day to digest, to move forward, to kind of reset maybe. Not all of you see it that way. Newberry Chris, I don't think understands or doesn't see it at all where I see what's going to happen today from. He says Shane Beamer is a coach for the players, not a therapist for the fans. Well, no doubt he's not a therapist, but he is the leader of the program, and he sets the tone. And I don't think since Lou Holtz came in and talked about changing the culture and the whole deal, have I seen a head coach be able to really shape a fan base's mindset. I mean, Bill, the turnout for the Gamecock walk, the pregame stuff, the turnout for the game in itself was as good as you could ask from a Gamecock standpoint. And just to get your team there, I mean, especially after what we saw against Georgia, they didn't compete against Georgia. That was a 30-point spread. That was the week prior. And then this fan base did what it did. I think still a bunch of positive signs. I get it. Losing stinks. Nobody likes to lose. But I do feel a lot of positive momentum. And Casey has an interesting point on the YouTube live stream, says the focus needs to be on development and improvement. That's how Beamer can show value this season. Well, as long as that comes with winning football games as well. You can't just focus on that. And I'm sure Casey understands that. But I think maybe in the larger point, he's got a solid point there about development and improvement and moving the whole thing forward. And that was the answer in the preseason, right? That Shane Beamer got down to a T when he was asked what's going to be a successful season and kind of maximizing the team, right? Getting the best out of his players. And that's where you are now after dropping that Kentucky game. Because I'll go the other way. Like, what did Carolina fans really think was going to happen if you pulled that game out against Kentucky? You're going to contend for the East? I mean,
but your dreams stay alive.
You might go to a bowl game.
Your dreams stay alive.
Right.
That's the fun part. As I get older, that's the fun part about college football. As you get smarter and you become more maybe realistic. All right, this is not really going to be our team's year. You just want the enjoyment of the season to go for as long as possible. Like losing in week 1 is no fun because it's such a downer. It ends those again. What is it? Last night there was Powerball. I've done this. We've all done this a couple of times probably, or maybe it's just me. You spend $2 on a Powerball ticket, and for 5 or 6 hours that afternoon, you dream of, okay, I'm going to win Powerball and I'm going to have whatever $500 million or whatever it is. It's got to be some kind of ridiculous amount for you to start playing. Right now it's $570 million. You buy a Powerball ticket. And have you guys ever done this? Just for a few hours, you spend $2. Just go. You're getting gas, and you just spend $2 for like 6 hours. You just dream like, oh, I'm gonna have the big house at the beach. I'm gonna have the private jet. We're gonna play golf wherever we want to play. It's not realistic that you're gonna win. It's just fun to dream for a little while. It's kind of like South Carolina this year. It's not realistic you're gonna win the national championship. But when you start 2-0, you're like, anything's possible. I mean, guys, we saw some of the predictions for the Georgia game. Anything's possible. Go over there. It's fun to dream for a little bit. You don't like your team being eliminated. That was the worst part about the North Carolina loss in 2019 was it just ended the season on day one. Day one, the season was over.
Well, I think that's where Clemson fans are too. Here in September, having 2 losses already in a place they're not used to being. Chuck, interesting place. In my mind, he took me to with his comment on YouTube Live. Be unglued, demanding discipline, etc. What if Shane Beamer came in to his press conference? I think that's what he's talking about. Just completely unhinged, ticked off, attitude. Just that would be one way to go. I expect to see the exact opposite. And I think that comment, I think it was last week from offensive coordinator Marcus Satterfield was really telling about the philosophy of this coaching staff. He said, yeah, that's one of my pet peeves. When coaches just react to negative outcomes by saying, yep, we're changing everything. Get the next guy in there, the whole thing. So it seems to me that this coaching staff will probably take the opposite approach that Chuck is suggesting.
But they do need to make changes. Whatever they're doing on offense is just not working. You need to figure out a way to just get rid of the ball quicker, whatever it might be, because they're not just going to get better. Don't just hold pat and say, oh, the offensive line will figure it out. Because you could have put an 8th grade offensive line, or not even that. You could have put kids out there for their first day of tackle football, put 5 kids, said you're the offensive lineman, and lined them up like Kentucky was on that first sack and say, hey, left tackle, who do you think you should block on this play? And
well, Patrick,
to the defensive end.
We talked a little bit about that yesterday. I think there was attempts to make changes. We did see them over the weekend go to a more fast-paced, no-huddle offense where you had the play cards on the sideline and they would get there. There were some subtle changes. The thing is, they didn't work. Now, what kind of changes do you have to make? Do you go back? I think we're all a little confused as to why some of the things they did on the opening drive of the third quarter you didn't see much more of the remainder of the game. I think it's a fair question to ask, which if I'm Shane Beamer, I wouldn't answer this because this is a little bit of strategy giveaway, but how healthy is Luke Doty and how much does his health affect running him from the quarterback position? To not have a designed quarterback run in the first half either indicates one of two things. He's not very healthy and his feet right now cannot be a weapon, or the offense itself, the offensive scheme does not include a lot of quarterback runs, which is scary, knowing the type of quarterback he's going to be. Now, we came out, we saw two designed quarterback runs to start the second half. So there's questions like that. I don't know if that'll be answered today. It'll at least be entertaining. Thankfully, we have plenty of media outlets, ways to watch, listen, that you can hear for yourself what Shane Beamer is going to say at about 1:15 today.
Including right here on 107.5 The Game. We'll have it live for you. AC just hit us up, says if Doty's going to be running for his life anyway due to poor line play, I think we need more designed quarterback run play. Nick, good morning, guys. There's no magical formula. It's just going to take time. The talent was depleted when Beamer got here. I'm still very excited for the future. I love the aggressive play calling on fourth down. 803-404-6100. If you would like to join the program, love to hear your thoughts. You can call or text. It's the early game. It's 107.5 The Game.
So speaking of which, Powerball is now $570 million with a cash option of $410.1 million. If you won the Powerball and you took the cash option,
200.
You paid your 44% taxes, your lottery winnings would be $229,656,000.
Wow.
That's now's the time to play a little bit of Powerball.
We're seeing only 2 live spots for today.
Yep, I saw that too last night on the log. That's what it is. I tried to watch the Voice SEC story one last night. Didn't go very far. I was just pretty worn out, so I ended up going to bed pretty early.
Oh, the like broadcasters one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that advertised.
Bill, you said you watched all of it on Sunday, right?
Yeah.
What was going to be your suggestion to make it better?
I don't know what my suggestion. That's a good question. I never thought about what my suggestion would be. I don't know. It probably maybe shorten it a little bit. You could have gone. I mean, it's a deeper dive. Mississippi State, Auburn, Alabama a little bit. Larry Munson a little bit. The guy from Tennessee. I can't remember his name. Yeah, I mean Mississippi, Texas A&M, South Carolina. You know, they did a little thing on the guy who Jay Phillips always has on, the Vanderbilt guy. I can't remember his name all of a sudden either. Just about how hard it is to call a loser for so long, and then how he finally got to call the College World Series.
It didn't make it that far.
But I don't know. I thought it would be better than it was. It wasn't bad. It just.
Well, it just to me it shows how hard it is to tell that story. You know? Because it is all in the theater of the mind. So when you have to make that a visual thing, it's difficult.
It also didn't help for different circumstances that most of the guys that they were interviewing or that they were talking about were all passed away. So you couldn't get interviews with them.
Right.
But it was all right. It just, I don't know. I kind of wanted more out of it. I thought it could have been. That's a good question. How do you get more out of it?
I definitely loved the Mike and the Mad Dog 30 for 30.
Yeah, it's a great one. That was just more like kind of behind the scenes, their own personal drama. It felt like in always, which is pretty easy to get into. Pretty easy
And just
to make good.
ruling the biggest city in America.
Right. Well, that was cool too because it was almost like a history of sports talk radio. Yeah, if you guys haven't seen that one, I totally recommend it. Is it just called Mike and the Mad Dog?
I think so. Yeah.
30 for 30. Yeah, the SEC story, not necessarily a get out and must see. Is that fair, Bill?
Yeah. Don't watch it
Rearrange
again.
the schedule.
Again, the hour and 30 minutes seemed excessive.
Well,
I mean,
also just because you got so many different fan bases and it's so unique to like your guy, right? That I think it's a tough ask to do.
Not everybody likes their guy either.
Right.
I mean, they get to the last 30 minutes. It felt like the last 30 minutes was dedicated to the Auburn story about the guy who passed away in the car wreck in 2019 and the guy taking over for him. And that was, I teared up a little bit at that one, that little story about they had just asked the guy who's doing the play-by-play now. The guy who's doing it was great friends with Rod Bramlett, I think it was his name.
Bramlett, yeah.
And how they had just asked the guy who's doing it now, they'd asked him and his wife who didn't have kids to be their kids' godparents. And the guy says, like, yeah, you say yes thinking nothing will ever happen, and then
Yeah, I mean that's just an incredibly sad story overall.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, so there was that was kind of the end, and that was really sad, but I don't know. It just felt like there was more there that they could have gotten into. I don't know. I grew up. I had a lot of family members that were very tied in at the University of Georgia in the athletic department. So I met Larry Munson a time or two when I was real little, like 10, 11, 12. And so I always liked Larry Munson. And of course, for South Carolina fans, you go down that path. Like, what's the most iconic call? The one iconic call, and I don't know which one it would be. I would think maybe it's Brandon Bennett.
Sure.
But then,
Lay down.
Yeah, but then you also it's good on both sides, and I really wish they would have played that in there and gotten Bob Fulton in there. But
I think Arkansas fans equally unhappy with their lack of representation.
yeah, I don't remember much from Arkansas.
All right. Yeah.
September gets you 2-2, a 2-0 start, 2 straight losses to start SEC play after that for the Gamecocks 16-10 on Saturday, the latest one, and a lot of, I would say, frustration was the best way to sum it up from what we heard yesterday from Gamecock fans, because it wasn't just that Carolina lost. It's one of those things where it's a ton easier to stomach, Bill, if you just play it like the week before. Georgia was just a better team, right? Better team, clearly won the football game. You move on, you try to get better, and you go win the games you feel like you can win. But to have that one there for the taking, to have Kentucky making mistakes, Gamecock defense forcing a bunch of mistakes, the Gamecock offense put in prime positions to score and just not being able to do it time after time after time, I think it is a recipe for sure for frustration. And I think it'll take a little time for Carolina fans to get over that one. Getting right against Troy, I'm not sure how much makes Carolina fans feel better, but I think with where the program has been recently, what we saw against East Carolina just a few weeks ago, if you can come back and have a really good performance, a solid win in a lot of ways, I think it can at least maybe move past that frustration to some degree. But I guess maybe there'll be some fans out there holding on to that one for a while, just because of what Kentucky represents. And you brought up the number yesterday, man. It is, I think, a difficult one to swallow. Now 7 out of 8 for Kentucky against the Gamecocks in the series.
I think that my personal opinion, people can weigh in, tell me I'm wrong or right. I think some of it is, though, you see more potential, or I do. I see a little bit more potential in this football team than maybe we initially did. And part of that is because I see a schedule that's not quite as daunting as I initially thought. Missouri's not as good as I thought. That looks more winnable. Texas A&M without Haynes King. I would never pick South Carolina to win that game right now, but it looks more winnable. Clemson, I'm not picking South Carolina to beat Clemson right now, but it looks more winnable. And I think you see the defense looking better. And what you start to say is, hey, if we had any kind of competent offense, who knows what we could be this year? Maybe we win 6-7 games. Go to a bowl game, and this rebuild is instantly over. I saw yesterday, a lot of people yesterday were saying, hey, look, the 5-year narrative on a rebuild, Arkansas has blown that out of the water. It shows right now that you can win immediately. You don't need to talk about a 5-year rebuild. I think people are seeing, hey, the defense is playing a little bit better, and you look at the recruiting ranking, or you look at the recruiting, and you see guys like Keyshawn Nixon and Emory Floyd coming in, and some other defensive backs. And you say, man, you know what? We might be able to be a little bit better quicker than we thought. And if that's the case, the offense needs to be better. Tim, I also think the group that we felt best about, running backs, they haven't done anything. And you're sitting here thinking, we're doing this. We're being competitive and losing by 6 with our best position group basically being non-existent and contributing nothing to the team. So I think it's honestly, people are being realistic in saying, hey, I realize this team isn't still, 8, 9, 10 win type team. Yeah, maybe they're a little bit better. Maybe there's a little bit more talent, we realized. But man, if we just had an offense like we had last year where we could run the football, we'd have won that game on Saturday night. And we'd be 3-1 with a great chance to win the next 3 and be 6-1. And then with chances against Texas A&Ms or Auburn's or Missouri's or Clemson's to find an upset or two would be better than we realized.
We talked about main position of concern going into the season, right? It's one of those classic off-season, preseason topics. And running back was nowhere near the top of the list. The absolute last position that we would talk about, like you were saying, Bill. Defensive secondary was towards the top of the list. I think we all agreed on this show that quarterback was number 1, and then secondary is put pretty close up there. The fact that the Carolina secondary right now is so vastly outplaying the running back position, it is mind-boggling. It was the exact opposite of what we would have thought going in, the exact opposite of what we saw last year. And I think that is hard to understand right now, other than saying, obviously, Clayton White deserves a ton of credit. Got to give Jalen Foster a ton of credit for leading the country, tied for the lead in interceptions and making plays. And whatever Clayton White is doing to scheme up over there is clearly working in a lot of ways. And on the flip side of that, whatever Marcus Satterfield has drawn up on the Gamecock offense is not. And I hear your frustration. I think that is a real thing, right? It is not just if you lose a game, but it's how you lose. And when you can't score and move the football, that is even more frustrating, I think, than watching your team lose in a shootout, where at least you have plenty to celebrate offensively and feel good about seeing some touchdowns.
Well, yeah, and just when you go through the drive charts of the second half, it hurts your head to look at. Like, first of all, Kentucky, all they're doing is ball scurry drills this week because that was horrible. I mean, they weren't even like impressive fumbles. It's just South Carolina sticking an arm in there. But when you have 3 guys standing above the football and Kentucky gets it back and then they end up kicking a field goal, your next drive is 5 plays and you gain 1 yard. Then Kentucky fumbles again, puts you almost right into field goal range, or you shouldn't have had to gain much yards. Then you go turnover on downs, another fumble, another turnover on downs, gain 23 yards in 3 drives, and It's just you feel no confidence that you're going to be able to move the ball whatsoever. It's just it's painful to watch.
JB hits us up. Cool Care Heating and Air text line. Coaching not as bad as some are making it out to be. Should we have done a few things different? Yes. Still have to look at the players. Plays were there. Have to make plays when you get a chance to make them. Tyson points out that the secondary isn't playing behind a struggling offensive line. I would put the defensive line. Where would you put that out, Bill, as far as performing up to expectations? Would you say slightly? I'd say maybe slightly above expectations. I can see how some might say slightly below or right at. That's how I'm looking at the defensive line performance 4 games in. You're kind of shaking your head. You're undecided over there.
Well, at the end of the day, they did still give up 200. What was it? 250. It was 250 plus running last week. South Carolina's defense really excelled in stopping Will Levis from the pass game, but there were times I felt like Kentucky really could have, if they'd have decided to just line up and really try to dominate with the run, that's exactly what they would have done. So I'd give the defensive line a C plus. I think, what is that? That's average. I should know. I lived on C pluses my entire life. But whatever average is, they've not been bad. They haven't been great. I would skew a little bit more toward the good side, but at the end of the day, you give up that many yards rushing still to Kentucky. You got to be a little bit better, but they're not the reason they lost. Let's be honest. Let's be perfectly clear. The defensive line is not something that I consider to be an issue right now. And I think they're playing good enough. They're getting after the quarterback. You got to give them credit for that. They have created some issues there for quarterbacks, and Clayton White has done a great job of drawing up some blitzes. Jabari Ellis is having a heck of a senior season. Give him a lot of credit. JJ Ngbare, I was reading last night, looks like he continues to be projected in the first round, giving South Carolina potentially four first rounders in the last 5 years. That's hard to say, but that's going to end up probably being the case. So, I don't know, Tim. The 230 yards on 44 attempts is what Kentucky was able to rack up, 5.2 yards a carry. It's not good. I mean, it's not good. It's not something that you get very excited about. So I think C plus, B minus in that area is what I would give the defensive line so far.
It's really not skewed by massive chunk plays either. The longest run of the day was an 18-yarder from Will Levis.
Well, that
chunk by chunk.
To me, that was the impressive part for the Gamecock defense. That was the longest play at all. I think maybe 18 or 19-yard play. That was it. Kentucky didn't hit any of those big plays that Shane Beamer talked about this time last week, where they lead the nation in. And he mentioned that his defense leads the nation in limiting those. And a good sign for the Gamecock defense for sure. The offensive struggles more of a topic for Gamecock football these days as they now get ready for a Troy team that opened up a 9-point underdog at Williams-Brice Stadium this Saturday at 3:30. Now it's down to 7. Some of you have let us know about the big. We'll talk more about that as we continue to roll on. We see you on the Love Chevy phone lines. 803-404-6100 is the number. It's the early game. It's 107.5 The Game.
All right, zeros.
Ooh, that 1.5-year-old in rare form yesterday. Just not pleased, and still, man, this guy, the popsicles. If he hears the freezer, if he's around food at all, it's all about the popsicle. The popsicle makes a mess. Fortunately, we got help around my house when it comes to helping it look and feel its best from Zero Res Carpet and Air Duct Cleaning. Zero Res has been out to my house several times and done a great job cleaning our carpets. Really helped the kitchen and the bathroom tile look a lot better, feel a lot cleaner. The whole house, really. When Zero Res has left my house feels like it's a new house, that fresh home feel. Let them do that for you, whether it's your home, whether it's your business. Zero Res can do that for you, and they're going to do it differently than anybody else. They have a patented ZR water system. No harsh chemicals involved. That's especially important to me and my family. Also, no leftover soapy residue. Your carpets will stay cleaner longer. 3 rooms of carpet clean, only $119, plus a free hallway when you mention me, Tim Hill. You can book online right now at ZeroResColumbia.com. Give them a call at 803-262-4020. That's Zero Res. Spell it backwards or forwards. It's the right way to clean. Jason Brown texters.
I can't get.
What's that?
I can't get on the text line.
Oh yeah, why not?
I don't know. The login that I was using on my computer expired. This was the first morning it didn't work.
Weird. Did you have a username there?
No, I was using Jen's.
Gotcha. I'll see if I can add you right now. There we go. Yeah, I should be able to add you in here. Yeah, you're already in here.
What?
Yeah. It's under your non-Cumulus email. And I reset. Yeah, I just hit reset password for you, so you should have an email in your non-Cumulus email.
So now I can respond to people saying,
No, please don't do that. I didn't hear about Zaquandre White being injured at all. Did you, Joe? You, Bill?
No, he's not injured. I mean, that's just the part of, you're trying to limit. Well, one, they only ran 51 plays. But two, that's, we talk about going to a running back, not a non-running back by committee type deal. You just some guy, you got four, somebody's going to get left out. When Marshawn Lloyd only got one carry. If you can't stay on the field, South Carolina's got to get closer to 65, 70 snaps a game. 51 is ridiculous.
OMG, are we still talking about the loss to Kentucky on Tuesday?
Well, John from Somerville doesn't quite understand.
What? What else do you want to talk about?
You got all kinds of things.
He wants to talk about NC State or Boston College, probably.
Why aren't they giving Jason Brown a chance? He's an FCS All-American.
Oh, no. That's a terrible headline. Knowles coach Norvell defends 0-4 start.
I'd like to hear that.
Well, if you just take away one play, they're 1-3.
It's true. It's a good point.
Download the TuneIn app so you can take 107.5 The Game with you wherever you go. And now, back to the early game on 107.5 The Game.
Yeah.
Anonymous texter, are we placing too much emphasis on getting Kevin Harris going? It's really going to take much more time coming off back surgery and an offensive line learning a new scheme. Are our early season chances to capitalize on Beamer's high energy approach slipping away in the process Our unheralded playmakers need touches. Quantre White, Val, Nick Muse, Zaheem Bell, Josh Van. No way all these guys consistently win assignments. Thoughts? Well, that's a lot. And Bill, your point in the live video stream there during the commercial break, it's 51 plays, man. And that had been part of the talk going in, is to get a running back in a rhythm. And Marcus Satterfield has been very clear, the Carolina offensive coordinator, that he does not prefer a running back by committee approach. And he's had the exact opposite philosophy that we heard from Will Muschamp is, yeah, we'll just go whoever has the hot hand. And he's not that guy. And, I mean, Kevin Harris came in as the returning leading rusher in the SEC. I don't think there's been too much of an emphasis on getting him the ball. The problem has been the execution. And how much is he back to the 100% guy that he was last year? I think with Luke Doty also being banged up and not quite being 100% either, that's certainly been part of the issue for the Carolina offense to this point, Bill. Also, you do have to throw in, and I'm guessing we'll hear a little bit more of that from Beamer today about Doty's lack of experience and how he is still very much developing and coming along and just started career game number 3. It's an interesting place, I think, for Beamer to be in today. I just read the headline. I was talking to you guys about it on the video stream about what's going on at Florida State, and the headline is that Mike Norvell defending the 0-4 start. Some coaches are in bad positions as you get into the weekly press conference previewing the next game and having to review some struggles. And how Shane Beamer handles it today will be interesting, Bill, to see it in a variety of ways, because it was clear he was pretty crushed the last time we heard from him publicly, outside of his coach's show, I guess, there in the post-game press conference, as you would think he would be. The weekly teleconference, I guess, Sunday night as well. We heard from him from a disappointed standpoint, but a coach more than anybody else has got to move on from that, especially with this program being where it is right now and now down to a 7-point favorite against Troy.
Yeah, I mean, look, we'll kind of put a wrap on the Kentucky game today, and anybody who's got opinions but weigh in. But then you kind of move on to Troy, and you're right, that starts with Shane Beamer this afternoon, and again, we'll hear thoughts or opinions on how he wants to fix the offense, but we won't know for sure until Saturday.
Let's give Gamecock Lucas the last few seconds here at the end of hour number 1. Lucas, what'd you think? How you feeling this morning, sir?
I'm feeling pretty good. A little bit stuffy. There's like a lot of pollen in the air, but I think we did what we could do on Saturday. We could have kicked a field goal. There's a couple of conversions, and we might have been tied and went into overtime. But I mean, we can't, like you said, we can't looking back at the games that we keep losing. We have to look forward at the games that we could try and win and try to push forward.
Wise words.
Go Gamecock.
Wise words from Gamecock Lucas. Stuck the time.
Hit the post.
This is Gamecock basketball head coach Frank Martin. To 1.
How was Heath's show last night, Patrick?
It was good. I mean, not a lot of interaction on the phone lines. I'm sure there was a ton on the text lines. I think we only took 2 calls.
Wow. Absolutely, he did.
I wish he would have just dropped it.
To me, it was funnier how he did it.
Yeah. Who's the most fun person on the Ryder Cup team at the bar.
Looks like Justin Thomas to me.
Justin
Seems
Thomas.
like it.
Yeah. Who you got?
That group. Who's the most fun?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends what kind of fun.
I mean, I don't know. We're not counting Mickelson because Mickelson is a coach or was a advisor.
No, count him. I'm not
I don't
counting
know.
Phil
'Cause
because
it feels like Koepka and I don't know. Those are all some odd personalities.
I don't think Koepka's odd. I think when he's just like with the guys, he's very fun. Justin Thomas is definitely a good time.
Yeah, see, DeChambeau just seems like somebody who would try to talk your ear off and
Well, that's what I feel about Phil.
analyze how exactly the beer was made and the barley and the hops and how you could probably make a better beer. I don't know enough about Patrick Cantley, Harris English, Scotty Scheffler. Finau seems like he'd be a fun guy.
Yeah. But he's a little low key, I think.
Yeah.
Thomas is pretty intense. It looks like he could go high energy real quick.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Yeah, I'd go. Yeah, if you're going the high energy lane, yeah, Justin Thomas.
Interesting, Craig. Maybe, yep, I can see that. I mean, all of them would be cool to hang out with just to get a gauge of like the personality in reality. Good article on The Athletic. Your boy Twig was featured in it.
Oh, really?
About Dustin Johnson.
Oh, yeah.
He's one of the guys that grew up with him, so they talked to a bunch of guys that knew him back when. It was really good. Josh Kendall did it. Talked to Jimmy Kusa.
Yep.
About teaching him how to play.
It's a pretty good article in the New York Post about all the Ryder Cup wags.
Oh boy. I almost asked what that even meant. And then it came out. In my head, I figured out the wives and girlfriends. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty impressive group.
Yeah, I can see that.
Makes sense. Yeah, George, Arkansas is going to be a blast. I wanted to get into that on the show about Sam Pittman's comment yesterday about getting the positive approach. Patrick, that's probably worth playing.
What?
Pittman's comment from yesterday. Oh, yeah. I'll send it to you on Twitter.
I definitely can't name all of the Ryder Cup members.
Who are you missing? Describe them. Let's see if we can name them.
Well, I know Bryson, Finau, Cantley now, Spieth, Morikawa, DJ, Schauffele, Koepka, JT. So there's 3 guys that I don't recognize. I guess Daniel Berger's one of them, right?
Yeah. Short hair.
I think he's bottom right. There's 2 other guys I don't recognize.
Describe them. Oh, yep. Craig says Harris English. Probably one he doesn't know.
Was he playing?
Yep.
Can you see this?
Who would the other one be? Oh, let's play Name That Golfer.
These guys.
Got to get in there a little closer. You weren't really putting the top right, where the guys in the back, right? I think that's Scheffler in English.
Scotty Scheffler. Would not have recognized them if they were walking around.
Right. I think Scheffler seems like a good dude. He's still really young with Texas.
Is Harris English goofy looking?
He does kind of look like me. Yeah.
Yeah, he's kind of goofy looking. Got big cheeks. Tired eyes.
Oh, man.
I like that this texter texted, "Why are they giving Jason Brown a chance? He's a FCS All-American," and then texted the same thing but corrected the grammar. As if that's the reason we didn't read it yet.
Well, just got never know.
I'm just gonna have to play this right off the computer, Tim. Our Vox Pro is still down apparently.
Oh, yeah. Okay. But I don't even know if it's worth playing in its entirety like that. Remember, we got Perry coming on at 7:30.
You're up.
Cowboys absolutely dominate on Monday Night Football. 3 games in, is Eli and Peyton kind of old news? It's not new anymore. It's not novel, maybe. And the Gamecocks getting ready for Troy after the 6-point loss to Kentucky over the weekend. 2-2 on the season. We continue to digest and put in perspective as we kick off hour number 2 here on the early game. Glad you're with us. Tim Hill, Bill Gunter, Patrick Perrette, all with you this morning. Perry Orth, the former Gamecock quarterback, will join us in about 25 minutes, 7:30 or so, for the back half hour of hour number 2 on the show. And what we've heard so far, I think, Bill, is the continuing evolution of getting over that Kentucky loss in a lot of ways from Gamecock fans. For instance, Adam on the Pool Care Heating and Air text line, a long text about how he doesn't think Kevin Harris is the guy to get it done offensively at running back in this particular system, thinks he was a better fit for Mike Bobo and running behind a fullback and the whole deal, and concludes his text by saying the offensive line does need to play better, but even more of a reason to have a back that can adjust when it isn't there or bounce it outside. Adam, I think I understand his point, Bill, but to just write a guy off who ran for more than 1,000 yards last year. He ran for 1,000 years last year. That would be really
Pretty good, too.
Ran for more than 1,000 yards last year. And to just kind of pigeonhole him as a guy who can only run behind a fullback and can't do those things, adjust and bounce it outside. Look, Kevin Harris is a heck of a back. Agreed. I think we all see that he fit last year's system much better than this year. But there isn't a running back on the planet who you would say right now is a good fit for this year's system for Gamecock football. Because the system, as we've seen it through 4 games, I get it. It's not theory, but in reality, what it's been is there hadn't been many holes, and there hadn't been much good blocking in front of you. There's not a running back on the planet that's going to fit that system well. That's how I see it right now, Bill. What about you from the Gamecock run perspective?
Yeah, I think we kind of let's not overcomplicate this. The running backs, look, they need to play a little bit better. There's some holes that have been missed, some opportunities You still have to at times get in one-on-one situations and win the one-on-one situations. Marshawn Lloyd seems like has been some one-on-one situations where the guy makes a great tackle at times. And, Kevin Harris again is at times looked like he was maybe one tackle away from breaking a long one. I still don't quite grasp the concept of when Luke Doty or Zeb Nolan has handed it off, they push him in the back. Not feeling that one that much. Might need to get away from that little strategy. But I guess the bottom line is, look, there's something here right now with this team, whether it's the opposition stacking the box, South Carolina tipping their hand with how they look during formations, maybe not spreading the field enough. That's another concept. We talked about scheme. And Marcus Satterfield, one thing that I did hear enough about him to believe that we were going to see was these bunch formations. Patrick, the LSU team that Joe Brady had in 2019, a lot of bunch formations. Am I right? That was a Joe Brady staple.
Yeah, it's a hallmark of the Sean Payton system overall. Yep.
And so, you wonder. We know the influence they wanted Joe Brady because of Marcus Satterfield's 1 year with him with the Panthers, the influence of Joe Brady's system. But, and I'm spitballing here, so people can say, no, that's wrong, or you guys can say that. But what if you went back to spreading them out more, getting the wide receivers out further out on the perimeter, getting those defensive backs further out, having to make the linebackers cover? What was it? I misstated the number of yards sideline to sideline, but use the 53.5. Last week I said 52, so I thank you to the person who corrected me. 53.5, but spread the wide receivers out. I think there are things schematically right now that need to be adjusted that can help the offensive line, that can help the run game, and that's what they need to look at. One of the changes, again, give a little bit of credit. I'm not saying get all fired up and say, oh, good, they've adjusted everything. But give them credit for getting away from the huddle this past weekend and going to a more up-tempo system. I did think at times it produced results. It just didn't do it enough. So, Tim, I'll be interested to see what they can do this week to continue to evolve this offense. It stinks. And what I say, I apologize for. There's nothing we can do, but you've got a first-year head coach. Marcus Satterfield is not a first-time offensive coordinator, but I feel like it's trial by fire right now. All right, let's try this. All right, that didn't work. Let's try this. I know that's not what people want to hear. I know that probably angers people beyond belief at 7:08 on a Tuesday morning. But there is part of me that feels like they're kind of learning on the job and that people are just going to have to be patient with it and hope they find the right formula.
Well, you have that compared to last year, such a drastic change, right? With Mike Bobo coming in, so much experience in the SEC, which was a positive and a negative, I feel like, in a lot of ways amongst the Gamecock fan base, where you felt like there was a ceiling there, but you also felt like you knew what you were getting, and clearly what Mike Bobo was able to do in the run game is just vastly different from what we've seen from the 2021 version of the Gamecocks, despite the personnel being very similar. Did mention Prentice, the fullback, got there, and Carolina doesn't play with a fullback this year, much like the vast majority, if not all, of Division I football outside of Auburn maybe this year, with Mike Bobo running the show there. But I think it is a difficult thing to swallow, Bill, when you have really talented guys. You've seen guys playing well at the running back position, especially Kevin Harris, and now you don't see that. And then on the flip side of that, you saw Chris Rodriguez and Kentucky run for 230 yards over the weekend, and Kentucky's offensive line have an advantage over your defensive line and being able to move them and control things for the most part. It was the defense coming up with some turnovers to keep you in that game and certainly give you a chance to win it. Unfortunately for Carolina football, it just didn't happen. You sit 2-2 now going into the Troy game. We'll talk more about that with Perry Orth, kind of break it down from the offensive perspective. I'm interested in hearing Perry's evaluation of the Carolina offense right now from a guy who is doing it at the high school level, helping over at AC Flora, obviously played for both Steve Spurrier and Will Muschamp at Carolina, and then what he thinks about Luke Doty as we saw career start number 3. So we'll get all those thoughts coming up in about 20 minutes from now. Love to hear more from you at 803-404-6100. You can call or text. Just get going here in hour number 2. It's the early game on 107.5 The Game. Be right back, though. I'm going to run upstairs.
All right. Well, I'll wait. Then I was going to go get some coffee. Well, we'll hold out. We'll just drink some more water. We switched to the Black Rifle coffee. I think this morning we've got the Silencer Smooth. We just gotta get these knees healed up. I'm an old man, old man. Do too much. Do too much. Gotta get back in good health. Ugh. Oh, we're already 4 games in, starting to drag a little bit. The old college football season. Turning of the page to October. Larry on the text line is asking questions about EJ Brown. Some of these guys just got to play better in practice. Or EJ Jenkins, not EJ Brown. EJ Jenkins. Now Jenkins has got to play better. Got to go out and earn your
Do
snaps.
you think Spurrier, Riley, Joe Brady would have a 6'8" receiver and not have a play that can get 5 yards with a jump ball?
Yeah, it's just snap it, throw him a jump ball. That's all you got to do in college football.
If you're 6'8", you automatically win every jump ball. He's also gained weight, so he probably can't jump as high anymore.
Possibly. He did. He had 1 catch the other night.
Who's that, Jenkins?
Yeah.
Yeah, they put him in that spot. You can't imagine being a defensive back with coming across the middle at you. No, thank you.
Well, that's like the kid for Virginia the other night. I knew I recognized his name, Jelani Woods. He's 6'7", about 240, tight end. And he was a quarterback and went to Oklahoma State for Mike Gundy and ended up transferring out and went to Virginia's playing wide receiver. Patrick, you read this New York Post on the Wags?
Yeah. I don't know if they were all listed. Who's still single? One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No, everybody's got a girlfriend or a wife. Good for them.
So now is it the theory amongst Gamecock fans that EJ Jenkins is just the ultimate gamer? Is that what you're saying, Jay?
They don't even have lights at the St. Francis Stadium.
He's not an under the lights guy.
They only play daytime games.
Tommy Fleetwood's son is named Franklin Fleetwood.
Wow.
Frankie
Sounds like a
Fleetwood.
made
I
up
feel like
character.
that is a character straight out of Snatch. What was the one? Frankie three. Well, what was his? What was Benicio? Was it Benicio del Toro's character?
Got me, man. I only saw it one time a long time ago and could hardly understand it.
Oh, that's one of the best. That was one of my favorite college movies.
Did you
Dude,
see The
gotta
Gentleman?
watch that again.
Did you see The Gentleman?
Never saw.
Gentlemen?
Yeah, you need to watch The Gentleman if you like Snatch. Same director, Matthew McConaughey is the star. It's awesome. It's one of my
Thank you.
favorite movies the last couple
Thank you,
years.
Castro. Frankie Four Fingers.
The perspective from a Kentucky fan this morning. Well, Kentucky Joe weighing in on the Cool Care Heating and Air text line. This is what I see, he says. Definitely not as big a rebuilding job for the Gamecocks as first thought. Have holes to fill, not a complete rebuild. Kentucky has a much better defense than given credit for. The Gamecock offense can't line up and run the ball 10 times for 30 yards to take over a game. The defense can't line up and stop the other team from doing the same. The rebuild to me is in the trenches with a few weapons on the offense sprinkled in, not far from being good. I don't know if that makes Gamecock fans feel any better at all. So we've talked about it many times on the show about the Carolina-Kentucky football relationship and how South Carolina, the program, has always seen itself above Kentucky and backed that up for what was the run? 13 out of 14 years or something crazy, 10 out of 11. I forget what it was for Spurrier and company. And for a long time, it was Kentucky and Vanderbilt, the two teams that he had never lost to in college football. Most of those wins coming to Florida before taking over at Carolina. But I don't think you take much solace from a Kentucky fan saying, the rebuild's not as bad as I thought it would be for you over there, South Carolina champion.
You know what? It's an interesting poll question through 4 games. You know, it really is a great question. Like, now that you've had a chance to watch South Carolina against 4 different levels of competition, I mean, let's be honest, that you couldn't ask to do an evaluation of a better set of games, right? You've had the complete domination mismatch game against a bad FCS team. You've had the non-power 5 team that's not bad, but not really good. You've had the elite of the elite, one of the top 2 teams in the country, and you've had the team you're trying to catch, the program that has now been the biggest thorn in your side. What do you think of the program now 4 games in? And I don't mean for this year, but I mean moving forward. Do you say, hey, we're a little bit further along than we thought? No, we're as bad as we thought. That's a great question because, you know, the schedule release came out last week for the 2022 season. So we can kind of go ahead and look ahead. South Carolina picks up an Arkansas team. By the way, I know a lot of people say, Arkansas really trending up, but Arkansas loses a lot next year. They hit the transfer portal. They'll probably hit the transfer portal hard again next year. KJ Jefferson will be back. But, I mean, Tim, you got a good point. You look ahead to next year and you say, okay, what are the Shane Beamer expectations? I think some people would look at it and say, well, you know, keep Clayton White around. Man, you keep this Clayton White around, we continue to get some defensive talent. That defense is going to be rocking and rolling within a year or two, but then we got to get the offense fixed. And how quickly is Marcus Satterfield the guy for the job, and how quickly can he get that going? And is it a Luke Doty thing? Again, Luke Doty is, because of the COVID year, is a freshman. He's a freshman. And he'll start game number 4 in his career on Saturday night. Game number 4. You know, I'll see if I can go back and just look at what. And I know it's an unfair comparison, but I'm just going to use Connor Shaw as the comparison. We'll go back and we'll see what Connor Shaw looked like in his 4th game of his career and how it compared here in a second. But to me, I'm not trying to sell anybody on, South Carolina is going to be competing for the East in the next 2 or 3 years. I'm certainly not trying to come across as Gamecock Larry and what's his statement that the Final Four in 2024 or something.
Mm-hmm.
But I do feel like you look at this and you kind of say, hey, I like the potential direction of the program if the offense can get fixed and we can secure Clayton White and that defensive staff.
All right. So, what 4 options would you like to go with exactly for the poll question? I've got it up and rolling, or will have it up and rolling at 7 Hill 1075. How do you feel about football after the first month of the season? I think still not sure is a legit option, or and about what I expected. What other 2 you want to go for?
Well, I would say, how do you feel about the future? Let's change it, because it's not just about it, but how do you feel about the future?
Okay.
Or how do you feel about the rebuild, or something to that? Let's go. And I would say encouraged. I would say still not sure. I would say it's still going to be long. And I don't care. We just lost to Kentucky again. That's too many characters, but you get the point.
Oh, maybe UK will save us on that one with the 25 character limit on Twitter. Get that up and rolling real quick at Tim Hill 1075. Patrick, how do you answer that?
I honestly might go with the 4th one, because it is such a week-to-week thing right now, and I'm just so bummed about how everything went down. It's just really the turnovers. When you have turnover luck like that, and you can't capitalize on it in a game that you really just had a chance to steal a game against a team that's better than you, and you let it slip away, and you just feel like you're not going to get that chance very often.
But see, Patrick, this is where I kind of talk about long term. I didn't come out of that game feeling that Kentucky is light years ahead of South Carolina.
No, not light years.
And I feel like you can catch them relatively quick if you can get some things fixed. I'll say this: I look at the offense. Landon Sampson, the young man, the wide receiver out of Texas, he looks like a guy who could come in and contribute pretty quickly at a position that is still of need. All right. Antonio Williams just made his official visit. Josh Van's an interesting guy because he technically gets another year. Patrick, I would assume you're the draft guy. If Josh Van kind of continues down the path he's going, is he a draftable prospect?
I mean, if he is like near the top of the SEC in receiving by the end of the year, sure, possibly.
You think so? I mean,
but I don't know that he would leave. I mean, he'd probably have to prove it for another year, because if it's close, they're probably going to lean towards someone who has years of production versus just came out of nowhere for 1 year.
Again, you talk about a rebuild here, and not just this year. Some of the focus does need to be on this year. I'm not buying into year 0 in the Shane Beamer era. There does need, and Shane said it. And let's kind of backtrack another step again. Shane said, when asked about his goal, the goal is for this team to be playing the best it is at the end of the year. And Patrick, if they win these next 3, as Patrick said, and you're 5-2, and you're playing your best football at the end of the season, and you steal one, say Auburn comes in here on November 20th, and you steal that game, that kind of validates, and you get to 6 wins, and you're bowl eligible. That kind of validates what Shane Beamer says, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'll go back real quick, and Antonio Williams, Landon Sampson, you get Josh Van back next year, you get Luke Doty back after another year. There are reasons, I think, to be optimistic about the future of this program, but there are things that need to be fixed that we want to see.
And it's going to be years before you have some promising offensive line recruits, but none of them are going to be ready to play as freshmen. You're not bringing in these 350-pound grown men like Alabama is.
No, but I'll be honest. It's the what I see from Georgia right now. I don't know if it's realistic to think South Carolina catches them in a long time. Georgia, I'll be interested to see how this season plays out for Georgia. This Saturday, 18-point favorite. But you know what? Don't worry about catching Georgia right now. Catch Missouri. Beat Tennessee in 2 weeks. Put yourself for 2021 ahead of Tennessee. So those are small steps.
Jay from the Interstate on the Cool Care Heating and Air text line. Still have excitement for this team in the future, he says. Had a chance to beat Kentucky. Hope Beamer can address playmakers and offensive line and recruiting. Seeing a lot of defensive recruits. Now need to address the offense. Bill, would you like to speak on the recruiting direction there, since you're the resident recruiting nerd? And I wanted to see if you approved of the specific wording of the poll question. How do you feel about the future of Gamecock football after the first month of the season? Will win big soon? A long path to the top? Still not sure? Or still getting over the Kentucky loss?
I like it. Let's go with that.
Okay, that has officially now been tweeted out at 75. You were part of the creative process. Thank you for your help out there. Now, to address what Jay had to say, Bill, on that Cool Care Heating and Air text line about the recruiting direction of the Gamecock football program.
I mean, look, they're having to go out and land guys. Right now you look at a Keenan Nelson Jr. That'll be helping the secondary. I think you continue to build that secondary out. The way they play, Jalen Foster going from walk on to he could be a potential All SEC type performer this year if he keeps it up. I think Tim, you said yesterday he's tied with a player for Oregon for the national lead in interceptions.
right.
You've got him. You've got Emory Floyd. Anthony Rose is a guy that they're very high on that could come in and play safety. And so you feel like they're continuing to build the back end. The linebacker position, we'll see who they can land. Stone Blanton is still out there. It is more of a defensive class at this point, but there are some offensive prospects that are still out there. Antonio Williams being the big headline name that can continue to build that offensive class. Dane Key, who is a Kentucky native, who was in town this past weekend, who a lot of people think it'll be between South Carolina and Kentucky. He is a legacy football recruit at Kentucky. But, you land those two guys, all of a sudden you say, hey, wide receiver position, we feel a little bit better at. Obviously, until he tells you no, Oscar Delp is still out there. My personal opinion is that he's a long shot at this point, but he is going to make a visit here to Columbia this weekend and could have an announcement very soon. Again, I think it'll be Georgia, but the bottom line is he's still out there. He's not told you no. He's not made a decision and said he's going to Georgia. So there are still some offensive guys out there, and we'll see if South Carolina elects to go after another offensive lineman or two in the future to maybe continue to build out that offensive line, or if they just like the guys that they've got on campus and think, hey, it's a scheme thing, and if we can get the scheme fixed, these guys will fall into place.
Alan on the YouTube live stream says, I was optimistic about Carolina winning 6 games and making a bowl game. Now, after 4 games, seeing the offensive woes, my optimism is dwindling. I do believe Beamer is the right guy. 803-404-6100, the number if you would like to text in. Maybe you can do so with some questions for Perry Orth in mind. The former Gamecock quarterback going to join us next for the bottom half hour of hour number 2 here. It's the early game. It's 107.5 The Game. I'll read these texts here on the video stream. Probably won't be able to get them in a timely manner on the air there. Not sure why anyone is surprised that this offense is worse than even possibly imagined. I mean, when Satterfield was hired, 100% of the fan base said, who's that guy? Then after researching his background, left with even more questions as nothing really stands out or gives me any confidence moving forward. Big mistake by Beamer hitching his career to his groomsmen. Quite amateurish, honestly, from anonymous text.
All right. Yep. I'm going to get coffee. I'll be back.
Glad you got to hear that first, though. Trying to go back and see exactly where this guy's coming from. I wasn't happy with the hire. Yeah, the elite staff he wasn't a big fan of. Was a big proponent of Jamie Chadwell getting hired originally. So one of those guys. Wes Cola Tom says, disappointed we let a very winnable game get away. 3 things I'd like to see going forward. Number 1, stop running into the teeth of SEC defenses. We don't have the offensive line for that. Number 2, throw past the first down marker on 3rd and long. Maybe you get a pass interference or come down with the ball. You got to convert more 3rd downs. Number 3, go for the big play off of turnovers, especially on their side of the field. That was a Spurrier staple. It can drive a knife into your opponent's heart. Love it, guys. Fought until the end. Go Cox. West Columbia, Tom. Miles. East Carolina barely got by Charleston Southern. They are bad. USC desperately needs skill players along the offensive line. We also needed immediate athleticism improvement at the linebacker positions to fill the gaps and stop the run. Steve-O. We as Gamecock fans have to come to terms with the fact that just because we've had prolonged success against a certain team doesn't mean we always will. Kentucky is in a good place right now because they bought into a head coach and chose to stick with him. There's a lesson we can learn from that. I hope we do. and Eddie is more disappointed in the fans than the team. I'm completely satisfied, Eddie says. I'd like to see improvement from game to game. Right now, we're just steady. I'm not going anywhere after 49 years. Yeah, Mark, that's a pretty damning stat you got there. Craig, a little bit earlier in the coaching career, why Joe Brady was relatively unknown.
Relatively, though, people knew who Joe Brady was.
And made a name for himself for sure. I think defense and special teams much better than fine through 4 games, Alan. Especially if you're going to call the running backs fine. And how much does an offensive line coach affect the offensive line performance? Is the question to this point, right?
All right. He's ready.
Nice.
Bill, do you have Amazon Prime Video?
Yeah.
Yeah, you need to watch The Gentleman.
Okay.
That's exactly up your alley if you like Snatch.
Who is it? Is it all Benicio del Toro? Was there another?
What?
I'm trying to think of the directors for Snatch.
Guy Ritchie.
Guy Ritchie. Thank you. Good Lord.
And he has Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
Yeah,
Which
I've
is-
actually just, you know how I'm not good at watching movies, but yeah.
Those are his like 3 that are all in that same kind of style. All right. You're up.
We're right out to the Love Chevy phone lines as we kick off the second half of the program. We do it as we do every Tuesday during football season about this time with former Gamecock quarterback Perry Orth. Perry, how you doing this morning, sir?
I'm great. Doing great. Sun is up and shining again and gearing up for another Carolina football game Saturday.
What'd you make of 16-10 Kentucky over Carolina Saturday night?
Yeah, great atmosphere. Defense played great. Offense did not. I think it's tough when you only had 51 total plays. It's tough to score a lot of points regardless. We had a hard time sustaining drives. And I normally don't do this, but I was just curious to kind of see, try to gauge a decent opinion on where things went wrong Saturday offensively. And I don't normally ever go back and watch games, but I was really curious to see what was kind of going on. And it was weird. It was almost like every time we would have a good play, it would follow with a play that would just stunt the drive. For instance, you have a good run on the second quarter. Next thing you know, the back snap. You kind of rush to get the handoff, and timing of the play busted. somebody happens to come through, and now you're looking at 3rd and long and forced to have to drop back and throw into a soft Kentucky defense. They're playing 8-9 yards off the ball, keeping everything in front of them. It can make things difficult. I think the resounding thing is that we got whooped up front, and that was obvious. I did love our touchdown drive after going back and watching it. I really like, we may not have any big names at receiver. I know Josh Vann has played well. Jalen Brooks came on later. E.J. Jenkins had a good play in the 4th quarter. Nick Muse obviously is a handy tight end. Jaheim Bell, I'd like to see more of him. We've got guys that I think can make plays out wide and in the passing game, and I think Luke can throw it well. I mean, that's what he did in high school. He was in the gun throwing it all around the yard, so he's comfortable in that. And he looked really comfortable throwing the ball, downfield, across the middle, and then obviously threw a great touchdown pass. So maybe they'll look at that and think that might be a good avenue for them to start diving into. But, all in all, it was unfortunately not one of their better games.
Former Gamecock quarterback Perry Orth. Ross hits us up on the YouTube live stream and says predictable. Inside zone, short pass. Is that what you saw as well as you did your best Will Muschamp impersonation? It sounds like going back and looking at the film there, Perry.
Well, I hope more coaches than Coach Muschamp are going back and looking at the film. But yeah, no, I did my coaching duties. No, but that was one frustration that I saw was it was run, pass, and pass on 3rd and long, and it just makes things difficult. I will tell you though, as a play caller, it's really frustrating and difficult when you're getting. We got a lot of quarters. We got some soft cover 3, and they didn't blitz a ton. We couldn't get any movement with our guys in the run game on their 4 down, which causes headaches because if they can take your run game out of the equation without having to do any run blitzing or our guys with the ability to get to the second level, and I say our guys, I'm referring to the offensive linemen, typically you have a double team or two that's able to get and extend to the second level and get to the linebackers. And when you can't do that and linebackers are able to play their gap without somebody in their face, I mean, you're tackling somebody in a phone booth, which isn't ultra difficult. So we have to figure out a way to get our guys to the next level, whether it's a gap scheme with some power and counter runs. I'm not really sure what that looks like, but game 4 is not what we would have expected, but at the same time, it is still early. It's not time to hit the panic button. Kentucky's a good football team, and they have a really, really good front 4. They made that very obvious Saturday night, and I'm not hitting the panic button now. If we get into games 6 and 7, and we're rushing for 58 yards, then we absolutely would need a change in scheme, not coaching staff, but change in maybe what we're trying to accomplish during the game.
Perry, talk about the opening drive from a mindset of an offense. 3 out of the 4 drives this year that South Carolina's had have been 3 and out. The other one, South Carolina, Zeb Nolan hit Josh Vann for the long pass that ended up leading to a field goal against Georgia, which gives you a little bit of momentum. But you've both as a player and working with Steve Spurrier and with Kurt Roper, now as a coach and scheming up the opening drive. Talk about that opening drive and what it means for confidence for an offense just moving forward. And then also as a play caller, how you go about that, because right now that was deflating. Kentucky gets the ball on Saturday night to start the game. I didn't mind the move. They go down and score. And then South Carolina comes out and just goes 3 and out. And that's the 3rd time in 4 games. It's just been 3 and out to start the game.
Yeah, it's the first drive of the game is huge for confidence. Anytime you get the football and you go right down the field and score, you're gonna feel better about yourself moving forward throughout the game than obviously if you go 3 and out. The confidence one is huge. The yeah, we have to figure out a way to generate some type of movement, or at least a half of a drive sustained for the first drive of a game. One crazy stat, you kind of take out the Eastern Illinois game. That's not your normal competition. But we haven't scored an offensive touchdown in the first half yet this season. And it's huge for confidence, because when you go out there in your first couple series and you spin your wheels and have 6 plays, because typically in the first quarter you only get into maybe 3 series, and you go through 3 series of the game and you've only had 12 plays on offense. You're still not in a rhythm. You're still in like this almost pre-game funk. Like you almost kind of feel like you're not even playing in a game. And so, that it doesn't always necessarily mean drop back and throw the ball deep, throwing post routes and go routes, because, to be honest, that wasn't there Saturday night. I mean, they play soft. They keep everything in front. They basically say you're not patient enough to move the football, and you're not good enough to move the football, in 5-yard increments against our defense down the field. And, they were proven right in what their scheme was, but we have to find a way and manufacture ways. It's like playing small ball in baseball, right? You got to manufacture runs. One guy gets on, you sacrifice bunt, then hopefully, move the runner over, and then hopefully get a clutch hit to get a run in, right? So not too different in football, right? You gotta be super creative and try and manufacture ways just to keep drives alive. I don't know how you do it. Maybe it's going for it on 4th down, which I'm assuming that question's probably coming sooner or later. But different ways to continue to move the ball versus just your standard lineup, and we're going to run it, and we're going to be better than you, and then we're going to drop back, and we're going to complete our pass, right? A bit more creativity in that. And I don't know what that looks like, right? I don't know exactly their philosophy on offense, but that is something that will need to be fixed.
Anonymous texter in on the Cool Care Heating and Air text line with a question for former Gamecock quarterback Perry Orth. Why is Luke Doty not keeping the ball in the read option? The texter asks. Wide open multiple times? Question mark. What are your thoughts, Perry?
Yeah, well, sometimes it's not always necessarily a zone read. It's an inside zone, so it's a straight give. So you're not necessarily reading that backside defensive end. Now, I will say a lot of times folks watching on TV, they'll see that defensive end crash or slide down the line to play that run. But there's a defensive technique that a lot of teams play to kind of take away that zone read, and they call it a pinch scrape. And what that means, that defensive end is going to slide down all the way down to the A-gap and show like he is taking the running back. Then that play side or that backside linebacker will scrape around the end, get around the tackle, who's kind of run inserting up to the second level. He'll run around that. You don't see it on the TV because the camera's following the running back, but the linebacker's playing outside. So yes, if he did pull it, there's the linebacker standing right there to make a tackle 1 or 2 yards down the field. But listen, I don't know the exact play they're talking about, and it may be open, and he may have just had a bad read. I mean, that you also have to throw in the human element as well.
He's former Gamecock quarterback Perry Orth. Plenty more with him. Interested in hearing your thoughts about how Carolina can get going in game number 5 against Troy, and what exactly the challenge that Troy presents might be. With the game down to a 7-point spread after Carolina opened up as a 9-point favorite. We'll do that when we come right back. It's the early game. It's 107.5 The Game.
107.5 The Game. Clear. Be present and free of charge.
Kentucky goes down and scores. But you watch South Carolina's opening drive. Kevin Harris makes a nice run on first down, gets it to 2nd and 4. 2nd and 4, he's got the first down. He just trips and falls down. I thought Luke Doty might have pushed him in the back, but Harris is going to run right up the middle, and he just trips and falls down on his own. I think the 31-yard line just tripped him up. And then so it's 3rd and 4, and it looks like Doty predetermined he was going to throw just a swing pass out to Kevin Harris. There might have been 2 guys open on the play, but it looked like Luke Doty just determined on 3rd and 4 they were going to throw a swing pass to Kevin Harris because he looks down the middle of the field at safety, and then instantly just fires it to the right, and it's a 1-on-1 situation. I mean, it is a 1-on-1. Kevin Harris can't make the guy miss, and South Carolina goes 3 and out.
With a dramatic coffee sip right afterwards.
That's right.
So, and they go 3 and out.
That's how we do it on the rewatch.
The opposite of the mic drop, the coffee sip.
Yeah.
And it's a 3 and out. The coffee mug, much more dramatic than the thermos thing I got.
Thank you. Tells me that life is a journey.
You go
Pretty
pinky
often.
out, especially. Hey-o, Jan.
There you go. Yeah. 31-yard line getting in there.
If you
Go to the next offensive series here.
looking for a optimistic outlook, take Grants there, being an Iowa guy. It was a great defense, questionable offense. That doesn't mean you can't win.
All right. Once again, I've managed to avoid these 2 guys calling the game because I've got it on mute. Brian Custer and Kelly Stoffler. It's just all right. Here we go. Let's see here. So 2nd drive, shotgun formation. Nick Muses playing back 3 wide outs. They're spread out, no bunch formation. McDowell goes in motion, little touch pass to him. He turns it up. It's a good play. It's 1st down. I mean, that's a good play. Goes 11 yards, and that counts as a pass. It's just that little. I mean, that's a good play. Keep that one in the playbook. All right, little tempo. Look like 2 tight ends. Little pistol formation. Josh Van and another wide receiver split wide left, so not bunch.
Here we go.
You're up.
Rolling along here in hour number 2, a few more minutes with the former Gamecock.
Love Chevy phone lines right now. Perry, got another question for you via the Cool Care Heating and Air text line from Kelly. Why not take advantage of soft defenses with 5 to 7 yard quick slants or down and outs? Is his question.
Yeah, that's a great question. I would have loved to have seen that myself. Yeah. No,
Well, Perry, let me ask you this: from what you've seen from Luke Doty so far, and bigger question, what makes a quarterback a good slant passer? I'm trying to think of who I was watching over the weekend. At some point, I can't remember what quarterback, they were talking about how great the quarterback was at throwing the slant pass, just that particular, like as opposed to a deep post or any of the other ones. But is it something where Luke Doty might not just be good at throwing the slant right now?
No. So quick game, I consider like the down and out, the 5 yard out route, the slant route, the 5 yard hitch route, which is just run 5 yards, turn around, stop, catch the ball real quick. I classify those. Those are all quick games to me. Quick games, all footwork. It's all making sure your feet are aligned to your target, making sure you catch the snap properly, to where you're not catching the nose of the ball, playing with a sense of urgency and get the ball out. Nothing more than that. And the more that you throw slants, the better you get at it. Their timing routes, it's just, you just have to rep it. The only way you get good at really anything in the passing game is by constant repetition, which I know they're doing. I just think that sometimes, and this goes for any coaches at any level, that you can get ahead of yourself in game planning and scheming to beat opponents, and you kind of forget, like, wait a second, a simple 5-yard hitch route would work great here. Listen, we do it all the time. And I constantly forget to do that in my coaching of reminding our guys about, hey, maybe quick game here would work. Because you get caught up and hit the deep play, and then when you get down and you're losing momentum on offense, you're like, man, we need a spark, and you're like, 5-yard hitch route ain't going to give me a spark, but it just might. And like I said, being patient and diligent and taking the underneath stuff will help you a lot. One great quote that I heard, actually, ironically, from Jim McElwain, the former Gator coach and Alabama offensive coordinator, coach of Colorado State. I was camping down there when I was in high school, and he had a really great phrase, and he said, if you take what the defense gives you, the defense will give you the game. I thought that was a great way to kind of summarize what his philosophy was, but also it made a ton of sense. Like, take what they give you, and then eventually they'll get impatient. They'll do something they're not used to doing, and then that's when you kind of strike them up with a big play. But yeah, I would have loved to have seen a little bit more quick games Saturday.
Former Gamecock quarterback Perry Orth just giving me my game plan for my 8U flag football team on Saturday. Quick game. We're going all quick game. That's all I'm going to practice with them. Appreciate that. And you're the first person I've ever heard on Sports Talk Radio, at least within the last 5 years, to give a positive quote attribution to former Florida coach Jim McElwain. It's a good one. That's a good one for sure. All right. What does Carolina now need to do against Troy this Saturday, Perry?
They need to get in a rhythm early. They need to find obviously being a quarterback, I'm a firm believer in finding ways to get the quarterback's confidence up really early in the ball game, because then that will sustain you the rest of the way. And when your quarterback's confident, I'll almost guarantee you that your offense is going to play better, because it will allow you to throw the football. You see the field better when you're confident. You move better when you're confident. You throw it better when you're confident. And finding ways to get Luke involved early, making some good, easy throws, and then that, in my opinion, that will help the run game. I can't imagine Troy being better than us at the line of scrimmage. So hopefully this will be a week that we can get the run game turned right and get ready to rally off some wins. With Troy, I think Tennessee, and then Vanderbilt. Is that right?
You got it. Yeah.
In the schedule, yeah. I mean, those are 3 very, very, very winnable games, and to go into, I think, the bye weeks after that at 5-2. Now you have confidence. So when you start taking off the more challenging back half of the season, you never know what can happen. So that's what I'd love to see Saturday. Defense, keep doing what you do, and offense, they'll get it right. I know they will. They're smart coaches and good players. They'll figure it out.
Perry Orth, pretty smart as well. The former Gamecock, always giving us our most informative 30-minute period of the week at Tuesdays at 7:30. Appreciate all the knowledge as usual at Perry Orth 10, where you can follow him on Twitter. QB1athletics.com is the website. If you would like to get specific quarterback training from Perry, you can also help you with any kind of insurance needs that you need as well. Perry, talk to you next Tuesday.
Appreciate it, guys. See ya.
Hour number 3 coming up here on the early game.
Clear. This is Todd Ellis, and you're listening to the home of the game.
Oh, Perry's getting to be a pro. Stuck the timing on that thing as well. Impressive.
All right, so second drive looks good. South Carolina comes out. They start moving the ball. We take the ball and get to midfield. So we're at the 45-yard line. South Carolina's run the ball effectively, some good blocking. 1st and 10, they send a cornerback blitz. We actually pick it up, and that's the one. Luke Doty's got Josh Vann wide open down the left sideline. He's got about 2 steps on the guy, and he just misses him. Touchdown. If he hits him in stride, it's a touchdown, but he misses him, overthrows him. 2nd down, South Carolina runs for 3 yards. Blocking's okay. Kentucky just does a good job.
Oh, you muted him? Oh, Patrick muted you.
On 3rd and 7, Ja'Kai Moore just blocks down to the right. And the edge rusher just comes free. Nobody even
I think Wednesday, replay Wednesdays. This is the segment. Bill just
Are we still talking about South Carolina's loss to Kentucky?
the
Yeah.
whole show. Like, that was a good play. Oh, that was a terrible play. Just
Well, I
ran.
mean, it's just,
No
it gives
sports
you,
talk on the live
if you
stream.
look at it, so the first two drives, there's one complete breakdown by the offensive line. Other than that, they've been all right.
There you go. Patrick's trying to take it in a non-sports direction.
I think we determined that no one likes horror movies on this live stream.
Yeah, that's not us, man.
However, on HBO Max this Friday, The Many Saints of Newark comes out, and I'm pumped.
The what?
The Sopranos prequel,
Oh, yeah?
Friday.
So is it coming out as a series as well?
No, just a movie. One movie.
I feel like those never work, man.
I think this one's going to work.
Why?
It looks really good.
Because of good editing in the trailer?
A good cast. A lot of money behind it. They didn't just pump it out to take advantage of any sort of like buzz around The Sopranos. David Chase is involved in it. The director is a good director.
Jason's with you. So you're young for The Sopranos back in the day, obviously. When did you watch it?
In college.
Bill, you were a fan, right? You do The Sopranos?
Yeah, I watched it.
I'd say Sopranos and Game of Thrones, I had similar relationships with. Like, I would watch it mostly, but I wouldn't qualify myself as like a bigger fan. I thought it was good, but it wasn't going to be necessarily appointment viewing because they were both night shows, right? It was home at Sunday night, and it worked out good. If I didn't have HBO, I'd get over it and eventually catch up.
Game of
I
Thrones.
want
I've
to say
seen
that
like
the
5
day that
times
the
and would say I'm an
Sopranos went
actual
off air
expert.
was South Carolina lost a super regional to North Carolina because we watched. I didn't have HBO at that time. That was right at the end of college. We didn't have HBO. We would go over to a buddy's house and watch The Sopranos that night. And I think we'd all been at my house cooking out and grilling and watching I think that's right, the regional or super regional against North Carolina. Then we went over to his house for the final episode of The Sopranos. And when it ended, we just sat there for like 15 minutes. Nobody knew what to say. Like, we're like, that's it? Like, is it coming back on? Will they tell us what happened?
Don't stop believing. Yeah, I still haven't
This
seen
Friday starts a pretty ridiculous run of movies, basically leading us into Christmas.
What do you got?
For people that like comic books, also on Monday is the Venom movie, the sequel. First one was pretty good, not great. Next week is the James Bond movie comes out, the final Bond movie with Daniel Craig. The middle of October, this movie with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, The Last Duel, that looks really cool, is going to come out.
That's a true story. I read about that.
Yeah, it is a true story. And then on October 22nd, Dune and The French Dispatch both come out, and that's going to be a monster day. I'm going to do a double feature on that Monday.
I think I heard this is the first time since Good Will Hunting that Damon and Affleck worked on the movie. Like, actually sat down and wrote it and worked on it. What is the premise of The Last Duel? Is it like sword fighting?
Yeah, they're both knights.
Knights, got it.
Yeah. One is like avenging a princess or something like that. It was the last legally sanctioned duel in France.
Yeah.
That's what I'm reading right here.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, Matt Damon's wife, something happens to her. She's alive, but something happens to her. And so it's basically he accuses somebody else, so that guy denies it. So then they have a duel to prove who's right. I guess that's the way they did it in France, if I read that correctly.
That should be another segment. Bill does trailers.
I don't want to go into all the details. I didn't want to spoil it. I mean, if you want me to really break it down,
Well, it hasn't come out yet, so can't spoil it too much.
So can you rank? Why don't
No,
you
but
rank?
it's a true story.
movies?
I understand what you're saying, but it's a true story. Like and from what I read, they followed the story pretty well.
Of all the movies coming out in the month of October, both the movies coming out on the 22nd are the two I'm most excited for: Dune and The French Dispatch.
Sonny, I think I kind of want to get into those American Horror Stories. I think they're on Netflix now, where I can go back and watch all of them.
I think they're on Hulu. They might be on Netflix too, but I thought it was isn't it an FX thing?
I don't think South Carolina needs to throw any more inside tunnel screens. They're not very good at blocking the inside tunnel screen. Jalen Brooks and Eric Douglas literally just ran into the field and just looked around and then watched Josh Vann get mugged. Like, Tim, you and I could have gone out and blocked better on that one. Like, it's just they go jogging out there and they're like, all right, we should block somebody. No, that's all right. We'll let Josh Vann get hit.
I'll remember that with the 8-year-olds this weekend. Maybe not get on them too much for not blocking. In flag football, where you're not
literally Jalen Brooks and Eric Douglas blocked nobody on the. I mean, there was 4 guys to block, and they blocked nobody.
It's just overwhelmed, like too many options. So
Yeah.
I got to check out.
It looked like the Miami player against Michigan State 2 weeks ago. It's like, I could make the tackle, or I could run into the blocker over here. Just take myself out. That was really bad. I mean,
So, Patrick, can you get Perry's podcast up?
Yeah, we need a new mouse because it's a massive pain having to edit on this computer without a scroll button.
Struggle is real.
Well, yeah, I mean, having to highlight and just zoom in on things without a scroll bar is
Right.
terrible.
From a listener standpoint, I think by far our most popular intro, Frank Martin. This fat guy got to block that fat guy. Gamecock fans want to see more of that. Rolling into game number 5 this weekend, the spread down to 7 points, opened up at 9 with Carolina and Troy. Gamecocks 2-2 after their first 4, after the first month of the season. That has led us to ask you the poll question this morning. How do you feel about the future of Gamecock football after the first month of the season? At Tim Hill 1075 on Twitter. A long path to the top, more than half the vote right now. I'm a little bit surprised there. Still not sure in second place. Will win big soon in third place, and still getting over that Kentucky loss in fourth place as we start hour number 3 this morning. Bill, a little surprised by the early returns on the poll question, or is that what you would have guessed?
Give it to me again. I apologize. What's the let me look.
A long path to the top with 54% of almost 125 votes this morning. I mean, does a couple of plays against Kentucky really change your mind that much, I guess is my question? Or maybe the thought process going in was it was already a long path to the top. Because coming into this season, I would have certainly put that, if these are going to be the options after any kind of game, after the first month of the season, for sure, what the long path to the top for Gamecock football. But what we've seen with Clemson specifically this year, that, man, the quarterback play can be such a drastic factor in this thing. And I guess you got to throw in the absence of Travis Etienne too. I know a lot of Clemson fans feel like that has played a huge role in their lack of offensive production. And to see that drop off so quickly, I mean, it has not been a long path to mediocrity for Clemson football this year after a 2-2 start. And I didn't realize it. Is this really the stat? I'm going to go double check this, but 31 first downs for NC State and 10 for Clemson in that ballgame. I'm going to go back and check that thing.
That is NC State's, I guess their Twitter account put it out. Dabo giving like a first down sign
Right.
in a press conference recently, and they just edited it where he did it 31 times, and they said in honor of 31 first downs. So I'm going to go with yes, that was a true stat.
To me, that's changed my perception of college football in general. I think you got to change your perception a little bit of college football and the way that there's been a stranglehold at the top of the college football playoff among the teams, Ohio State, Alabama. I guess you could throw Georgia in there along with Clemson. And who am I missing there? Oklahoma. But you see West Virginia fight Oklahoma tooth and nail and be in position to win that game. You've already seen Tulane only lose by 5 points to Oklahoma this year, and you can't tell me that Oklahoma's a dominant team. You saw Oregon knock off Ohio State, but I don't think anybody feels like Oregon is a dominating team. They needed 17 unanswered to win by 22 against a winless Arizona team just last week in the Pac-12. And you got Iowa. I think it was Grant that was listening this morning, who's an Iowa fan. Iowa sitting at number 5 in the country that had to come back and beat Colorado State over the weekend. So with all that being said, I just feel like number 3 through number 35 is a lot closer in college football across the country than maybe we've seen it in the last, decade or so, Bill. Would you agree with where we sit after a month in the season from a zoomed out view of all of college football, not necessarily just looking at the Gamecocks?
What do you guys think when you ask me that? I feel like college football as a whole, it's Alabama and Georgia, and then I do feel like the pool is bigger after that. Oregon, Oklahoma, throw Iowa in there, throw Penn State in there. I'm interested to see Cincinnati this weekend. Cincinnati goes to Notre Dame. That'll be kind of fun to watch and see if they can break through and get into a big victory up there in South Bend that would potentially move them to a better place. Just kind of scrolling through real quick here. Look, Michigan's undefeated. First time I think since 1979 that Michigan has not trailed in one of their first 4 games, starting 4-0. I don't know, Tim. It's interesting because I feel like the difference between 1 and 2 is so different. Or the 1 and 2 and the rest of the pack is so large right now. But I kind of enjoy it. It's fun seeing Arkansas up there. I like the fact that Notre Dame's still kind of hanging around. Mississippi, Alabama this weekend is going to be fun. It feels kind of neat that we're going to get a little bit of new blood. I guess you could still see Oklahoma in there, but maybe some new blood in the college football playoff. It's still going to end up being Alabama, Georgia, right? Like, it's probably what it's going to end up being. But I don't know. There's something that does feel different. Like a little bit more parity has crept in, at least this year.
Yeah, Troy says clearly Bama and Georgia are 1 and 2. No doubt about that. I just feel like it's been by and large 5 or 6 teams who separated themselves from college football, the rest of the pack. And this year you just got those 2 towards the top. And again, it's just a month in. So I guess that could change, but I don't see that changing with Alabama and Georgia. Maybe this weekend Arkansas will prove that they can play with Georgia, or if there is a much different type of game that Georgia gets into. We saw the slugfest with Clemson to begin with, but how do you put that into context now after you saw Clemson struggle and lose to North Carolina State? You saw absolute dominance from Georgia this past weekend over Vandy. So if they get in a much more competitive environment, how will they respond, I guess is my question. And Arkansas has been there already, a pretty competitive game with Texas A&M winning that thing by 10 over the weekend. Sam Pittman's comment yesterday, getting a lot of play on social media, I saw, asked about kind of his positive reinforcement. And he admitted he certainly gets mad at practice and the whole thing, but just feels like players reach their potential a lot better when they're not playing with the tension of, hey, a coach is going to be mad at me if I screw this up in some way. And I think Shane Beamer is very much like that in a lot of ways. Skews more positive. Bill, are we getting just towards that in college football in general in 2021, knowing how players seem to be more responsive to that. I think overall, or just where we are in society in general with how kids are raised these days. I feel like you're getting much more of that in college football than you've ever had before, and I think it's almost necessary because of who these coaches are coaching and how these players are responding these days. Is that too much of an old man take?
A little bit, but I here's what I think it's the Nick Saban approach, Nick Saban take, and I think it's especially for us in this part of the country who have seen so many schools try to emulate the Nick Saban process with the Jimbo Fisher hire, the Will Muschamp hire, the Jeremy Pruitt hire, the Kirby Smart hire. Quite frankly, if you look across college football, Dabo Swinney was not at the forefront, but Bobby Bowden wasn't Bobby Bowden. Bobby Bowden was probably the leader of the positive energy brigade there at practice. Like this has been going on. I just think because you've seen such a dominant run from Alabama and you see Nick Saban chastising whomever. I didn't stay up, by the way, to listen to him last night. Did you stay up for him on the Manning cast?
I did not see that, but I haven't seen a bunch of retweets of any kind of interaction between Peyton and Eli.
Yeah, I mean, I just the Nick Saban model, because it's been so successful, I think we all look at that and be like, oh yeah, that's how you're supposed to run a football program. And that's why you see so many of these Saban guys being hired, and then why you see so many people going back for rehabilitation, so to speak. What does Lane Kiffin do? What do you like? I've never really heard the model that Lane Kiffin is. Is Lane Kiffin an ultra positive person in practice?
I think he's kind of a Spurrier-esque type model, if there is one. And I think there are very few of those out there, right? Ultra confident head coaches in their own play calling ability, and that confidence, you want that to bleed over to your players. Lane Kiffin, the only sideline antics that pop in my head are what happened in the Ole Miss Carolina game, throwing that call sheet way up in the air halfway through the play and running down the sideline, and then getting absolutely chewed out by Nick Saban and clearly just hating every second of it when he was the offensive coordinator for Saban on the sidelines. That's what sticks out to me from a style and approach from Lane Kiffin through the years. But
I mean, that's what I would say is that I think that the positive reinforcement has been going on for lots of years. We pay so much attention to the Nick Saban model because, look, I mean, you win in the fashion that he has. Everybody thinks, well, that's the way you got to do it. But there's been other ways of doing it. There's been other ways of doing it. So I'm not sure that the positive model. And now you just see more coaches branching out and doing it because outside of Nick Saban, the Nick Saban model doesn't seem to really work.
On Twitter, at TimHill1075, Hayes hits me up on the poll question this morning, asking you how you feel about the Gamecocks after a month in. He says, it'll be a process, but I think we're a lot closer than people think. Everyone's so quick to throw in the flag in a world of instant gratification. I think if our offensive line can make some progress, and if we can have a little patience, we'll start to see the pieces coming together. And again, Bill, do you think these poll question results would be that much different? I do, in the way that we can overreact week to week in the college football season. If Carolina had made 2 or 3 more plays, maybe even just one more play to score a touchdown and win the Kentucky game 17-16, I think this voting right now would be pretty drastically different. And a lot of people would be saying, we'll win big soon, as opposed to the third place vote that it's getting right now.
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind. If South Carolina wins on Saturday night, what you're hearing right now is people saying, oh, Will Muschamp would have never won that game. If that 4th and 5 works out, if Jalen Brooks catches that pass, and I think it was right there at the first down marker anyway. I don't know if it was a guaranteed first down. But if Jalen Brooks catches that pass and South Carolina goes in to score and wins that game 14-13, you've got people celebrating today still. They wouldn't have made it to work yet. They'd still be calling in sick, saying, that's why we got rid of that bum Muschamp. Shane Beamer goes forward in situations like that. That guy over there, that's why we've got him. It would be a totally different – you're exactly right. It would be a totally different mindset of the fan base today. And, yeah, there'd be people right now, Tim, saying, hey, I don't know, man. Georgia, they could lose a game. We got that one loss to them. They could probably lose 2. Look at the rest of our schedule. Not daunting. We get Florida at home. We can win the East. You know we'd be getting it. One caller right now
Absolutely.
would already be. I mean, if they won the game and you look at Texas A&M and you look at Missouri, you look at Tennessee, you look, all right, Vanderbilt's Vanderbilt. You go, all right, boy, if we get Florida at home, and right now we're on the other side of that, right? We're on the other side of that.
For sure. Maybe I didn't make myself clear with that Sam Pittman comment and the question that was asked of him about how he believes in skewing more positive than negative. Absolutely, Jeff says, this was Justin. What are y'all talking about? Every coach has positive and negative reinforcement. I'm glad we're just assuming stuff this morning. And Scott says, so there really are cheerleaders? No. Every coach obviously has to give both sides, right? You don't perform up to expectations, you're not going to just be overly positive. What we're seeing with a program like Shane Beamer in South Carolina, where what is one of the main tenets out there, and especially being promoted out there, is love. Like, that is a much different message than a lot of college football programs have ever put out there in the past. Typically, I mean, with Will Muschamp, I would say if you had to give the theme of the program, it would be toughness, right? Or hard work, blue collar is what he always said, discipline. Those words. You're not hearing that stressed as much as the bigger picture and to struggle well and love. That is a softer approach. We all have to admit that than other approaches out there. And Sam Pittman has come in. He is the guy right now in college football, right, Bill? I mean, if you are a struggling college football program out there, if you're a fan of a struggling program and you want hope that things will turn around quickly, all you got to do is point right to Arkansas and Sam Pittman and say, hey, they just made the switch right there. A guy who'd never been a head coach before comes in, boom, almost instant success. And this week, they have the game of the week in college football and have a chance to completely throw us off of our track, which appears like what you were just saying, headed for the national championship and the whole deal. They can completely screw all that up. And nobody saw this coming. Did we? Did anybody come out there and say Sam Pittman is clearly going to be the guy to get Arkansas right back in the SEC West? After how many games in a row did they lose, Patrick, in the SEC? Was it 21? It's something nuts. Yes, it was something nuts like that. I'll look it up just to confirm. They were brutal. They were a joke in the SEC, and now they're right back at this point. Now, how long they stay there, I'm not sure. I'm not convinced that they're going to be a factor all 2021. But, I mean, you got to give credit there. And just like you were talking about the Saban model, Bill, is how everybody wanted to emulate their program and the whole deal. Well, now the fad is surely, hey, what's that guy doing? What's Sam Pittman doing in Arkansas to make this thing happen?
Well, with Arkansas last year, I mean, the Arkansas thing is so wild because what everybody's pointing to is how bad they were at the end of the Chad Morris era, which was 2019. So for example, 2019 is when they lost to San Jose State 31-24 at home and finished 2-10 that year with wins over Colorado State and Portland State. And they were just absolutely brutal. Last year they had the early win against Mississippi State that broke the losing streak.
It was
the
20,
SEC losing streak.
20 games in the SEC. They lost.
Yeah, they had the early win, but after that they beat Mississippi, which actually was a great win last year, and then they beat Tennessee, and they finished 3-7. The turnaround has really come this year as he took a lot of transfers. Texas, I don't know. We'll see what Texas is. Texas puts up 70 this past weekend on Texas Tech, and then let's talk about let's talk about Arkansas in 3 weeks. Because you guys see their next 3 games? Yeah, I'm just saying Georgia, at Mississippi, Auburn. And if they play them close, if they play those 3 close and they lose and you go, okay, yeah, that's better. You go, they're an 18-point underdog this week. You get your doors blown off by Georgia and Mississippi, and then you lose to Auburn. That shine is all for this, hey, he's got the rebuild going.
Is it? I mean, it's definitely.
This is. I'm going to change the team on you real quick. I'm going to change the team.
Texas and Texas A&M. Those are legit wins for Arkansas.
Tim, I'm going to change. They could. That would be better. Look, they get to, going from 3-7 to 7-5, 3-7 in an all SEC schedule. But Tim, right now, you look at Texas A&M, Mississippi State this week, Alabama in 2 weeks, Missouri, then South Carolina, then they finally get a bye week. The thing is, the money that's being paid to Jimbo Fisher, the expectations of Texas A&M. This is a team that we thought could crash the college football playoff this year. That people were talking about challenging Alabama for the SEC West, and you get beat the way you did last week. And I hate to say it, the amount of money that you're paid, losing with your backup quarterback is kind of not an excuse, right?
No doubt.
We don't. How good Texas A&M that game? That Colorado win, you beat Colorado 10-7, and I thought, oh, Colorado's not bad. Then Colorado gets his doors blown off 30-0 by Minnesota, who Minnesota turns around and loses to Bowling Green. I know I'm doing a lot of transitive. Transitive. Is that transitive? Is that right for this one? I'm going all the way back to Bowling Green beating Minnesota, who beat Colorado, who barely. I don't know if I'm doing that correctly or not there, but the bottom line is, how good is Texas A&M? How good is Texas A&M?
Not that good, for sure. But Craig's got a great point. As we sit here in 2021, Craig says the transfer portal has helped the teams 3 through 25 in college football. Kentucky, with 3 of its best players in the portal, you can fix leaks a lot quicker now rather than developing freshmen. And that goes back to these poll question answers, or the one that's leading the poll question right now. A long path to the top for the Gamecocks. How do you feel about the future of Carolina football after the first month of the season? Yeah, I'm surprised that's what it is. I guess I get it after some frustration losing to Kentucky, but I think I go the other way right now. I think that path to the top seems shorter than I thought it would seem a month into the season for this Gamecock football team, with what Shane Beamer took over, and knowing that we've got a really good representation of who this Carolina football team is against 4 varying levels of competition, with Eastern Illinois to start, one of the worst teams in college football that you could play. East Carolina, a team I think most people would rank around 80, 90 or so out of the 130 teams in college football. Then you had Georgia obviously at the top, and then Kentucky certainly more around 30 or so, somewhere where Carolina has a realistic chance to get pretty quickly back to where I think Gamecock fans are used to them being, kind of year in and year out from a competitive standpoint, if you look back through the 3 decades or so in the SEC. 803-404-6100 is the number in the program. Love to hear from you. Love Chevy phone lines and Cool Care Heating and Air text line. It's that same number, 404-6100. It's the early game on 107.5 The Game.
Getting about that time. You're going to go over the river and through the woods. You're going to go to grandma's house for Thanksgiving, for Christmas. Most people would be using a sleigh. Not you. You need to be using a brand new vehicle from Love Chevrolet. Go visit the great folks at Love Chevrolet, I-26 in Harbison between Lowe's and Frankie's Fun Park, and check out all the great deals they've got going on. It's no secret that COVID and the worldwide computer chip shortage has reduced the number of vehicles available for sale at Love Chevrolet. It's no different. But unlike other dealerships, Love Chevrolet is not adding extra add-ons to the price of the new cars to take advantage of their customers during the time of high demand and low supply. So that means you're still getting the same great deal. So when you go through the river or the woods or whatever you got to do to get to grandmother's house for Thanksgiving and Christmas, or maybe for trick-or-treating and Halloween, you can get a brand new Love Chevrolet for the same great deal that you've always been able to get it for. The $1,000 low price guarantee, where you go check out other dealerships, take their deal back to the folks at Love Chevrolet, and they'll top it. That incredible sales staff, so knowledgeable, so friendly out there. And that's important. When you go make a big purchase like a new vehicle, you want to make sure that you feel comfortable with the person selling you that car or truck, so that you know exactly what you're getting. And the folks at Love Chevrolet are the best in the business when it comes to making you feel comfortable. So go visit Love Chevrolet, I-26 in Harbison between Lowe's and Frankie's Fun Park. You can visit them on the web as well, lovechevy.com. Don't forget, they got the best deals, the best selection, the best sales staff of anybody out there. So get out to Love Chevrolet and find new roads.
Good question from Rob right now. What would the line be of Coastal and Clemson or Coastal and the Gamecocks?
It's a good question.
I'd say Clemson by 7-ish and Coastal by 7-ish would be my guess. What about you?
Well, I mean, I guess here's the question you got to throw in: where's the game at? Because that obviously matters. Are we talking neutral sites? Are we talking playing the game like in?
Let's go Conway. In Conway. I think that makes it more interesting. That it would ever happen. Why would the Gamecocks and Tigers sign up for that?
Yeah, I think Clemson would be close to a 10-point favorite. I think Coastal would be a 4 or 5 point favorite on South Carolina.
So you went a couple of points different there. Patrick, what about you? If Coastal Carolina was hosting Clemson and South Carolina right now, what would the line be?
Clemson would still be a 10-point favorite.
Same as Bill, he's there.
South Carolina would be 2.5 point underdog.
Wow, you guys are giving Carolina more credit from Vegas than me. I said 7.
What did Bill say?
What's that?
What did Bill say for Coastal?
4 or 5, I think. You said the exact same thing, 10 with Clemson. Like how we kind of get Patrick in the soundproof booth there when you're doing the traffic updates.
Yep.
Yeah, you guys got Clemson by 14. Being a Clemson fan.
I would pick Coastal in both of those hypothetical lines.
Same here. Yeah, I feel like Vegas is not high on South Carolina at all. That's why I put it up to 7. And I guess this is the first week that Carolina did not cover unless you got 6.5, right? Which I don't think you could have ever gotten. Is that what it opened at ish, Bill? Is that
What opened at what?
Did it open at 6 last week? Kentucky, Carolina.
Yeah, bounced around, went down to 5, came back up. I think it got down to 4.5 sometime Saturday morning. Because I did
But
see
it
the 4.5. I think it finished at 5, 5.5.
Did you ever see it at 6.5? That's my question.
Never saw it at 6.5.
That's very fair, Alan. Next 3 games will say a lot. 2-1, I feel like, is the floor. Yeah, Hope, I'm with you.
You know, I would encourage y'all to go back and watch. I'm again, the first half is flying by. Of course, I'm fast forwarding, but
Never watching
South
that
Carolina's
game.
had 5 drives. It's not offensively. We can't. Marcus Satterfield's got to be smarter on 3rd and short. That's South Carolina's problem. They didn't convert 3rd and 1. They didn't convert 4th and 1. They're getting positive yardage on these plays. It's kind of crazy to go back. I'd be interested for you two to go back, Patrick, you and Tim, to go back and watch
Not happening.
just the first drives. 3rd and 3. I mean, there's another 3rd and 3. Doty gets his pass down. So South Carolina's now 0 for 3 in their last 3 plays of 3 yards or shorter.
Yeah, does that make you feel better or worse?
I actually am watching this going, hey, I feel bad. We stink at blocking the end, by the way. That is the second time where the right tackle, the edge guy has come off. He's standing right there, and the edge guy blocks down. And so the edge guy in this situation, number 15, standing there, just bats Luke Doty's pass down. Earlier, it resulted in a sack. There's a massive flaw in the blocking scheme. The offensive line is actually at this point has not given up a tackle for loss.
And where are you in the game?
We just punted with under 5 minutes. It's right at about 5 minutes to go in the second quarter.
See if I can get this up. This picture somebody sent us is pretty brutal.
That was the one. That's the one I saw that. So that was the one I was talking about where they blocked down on
Right.
in the first quarter on the first or second drive. They block down and dude just runs free and crushes. Yeah. So you see the 4 and the number 4 guy. Number 4 is the left tackle.
Right.
No.
3.
Number 3 is the left tackle. That's Ja'Kai Moore. Ja'Kai Moore blocks down and crushes his guy. He beats him so badly he pushes him into 2. But number 13 is the edge guy and was standing right there at the snap. Was standing right over him at the snap. And so we run the little play action, and it's like 3rd and 3 or something. It might have been 3rd and 7. And nobody picks him up. Like if number 3, which is 55, Ja'Kai Moore, the left tackle, had blocked out and picked up 13, Luke Doty would have had plenty of time.
Well, it's 7-on-4 blockers versus rushers.
But what I'm saying is the left tackle, and that's the 3rd time that I've seen that in this game, where the left tackle in that situation, 13 standing over the ball or standing over the tackle.
We get it, Bill.
All right, we're back. You're up.
But Patrick, did you just get irritated with Bill as he's going back and watching the Carolina-Kentucky game? It seems like you're.
We explained the same thing 5 times over and over
You
again.
never understand it though. I'm
Yeah,
having to dumb it down each time.
It's actually the most simple play you could watch.
So what do you think the problem is?
Well, we know what the problem is, but I was just saying
So what's the
we're
fix
breaking
for
it down like it's some complex coverage when you
Well,
clearly.
That's because
Let's
it's
explain it for
happening-
people listening, please.
Go ahead, Patrick. Explain it.
We got sent in a still shot of the Carolina-Kentucky game, one play specifically on the Gamecock offense, where the offensive line blocks the wrong guy. The left tackle specifically, it's the one, Bill, you've described for us verbally on the show already. Ja'Kai Moore is the left tackle, and he blocks down, and there are 7 blockers in on the play for Carolina against 4 Kentucky rushers, and this is the one where Kentucky just has their defensive end on the right side go in untouched on Luke Doty. And for some reason the explanation is relatively simple, right? Miscommunication and wrong assignments. And it's just, if this happened once, this has happened relatively consistently. And Bill, what you're seeing, I think, as you're going back and watching this thing, maybe not as consistently as we're talking about it or as you might have felt coming out of that Carolina-Kentucky game. Is that what you're getting? That you mentioned you're in the second quarter with like 5 minutes to go, and there hasn't been a negative play yet for the game.
There was a sack there. That play that was a sack. But in terms of running backs, in terms of running the football, there's not a tackle for loss in the first half. South Carolina goes 0 for 3 in situations where there's 3 yards or less to gain. There was 2. There was a 3rd and 1 and a 4th and 1 in the second quarter where South Carolina does not convert a 1 yard to go situation, and then there's a 3rd and I think a 3rd and 3 on the ensuing drive that South Carolina runs a play action, and the same thing that we're pointing out happens. I no longer think it's a lack of communication. That's the scheme. That's the actual offense. Like whatever the offensive line's doing, what he's supposed to do. It's happened way too many times for it to be lack of communication.
So wait a second. Your theory is the scheme is to leave free rushers?
It's a wild strategy, Cotton.
Bold.
Or a bold strategy. It's a bold strategy, but that's the thing. I'll be honest. And I don't know how many people have gone back and all I've done as we've sat here in the last hour is I've watched the offensive plays for South Carolina. Just killing time doing a radio show. Got nothing else I got nowhere else to go. I actually come out of this going, the offense is closer to being fixed than I think people realize. The offensive line in this game isn't getting this massive push. Let's be clear. They're not, but there are some positive run plays in there. The problem is Marcus Satterfield in short yardage situations is going to have to be more creative. South Carolina, there's 2 instances in the second quarter where South Carolina's 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1. Kentucky simply puts 9 guys in the box. South Carolina really doesn't fail in what they're trying to do. Kentucky isn't a bad football team, and they just simply put more guys in the box, and South Carolina has blockers, and Kevin Harris has nowhere to run.
But Bill, I couldn't disagree with your takeaway here more. I feel like I've heard this with the last several offensive coordinators. The main complaint that you have is lack of creativity.
Well,
I don't think that's how you succeed in college football. Georgia does not have the most creative offense. Alabama doesn't have the most creative offense. They execute because they have better players, and they're just better. And to me, this drives me nuts when coaches talk about 3rd downs. Yeah, we just have to be better on 3rd downs, getting off the field and the whole thing. No, you just got to be better. It's not just 3rd down, and it's not a creativity thing. If they bring 9 guys in the box, it's very simple. You don't have to get creative at all. You throw it to the one receiver who's being guarded by the one guy on the other side, and you got to have your guy make a play.
Mm-hmm.
And if your guy's not good enough to make a play, then you're not very good. I don't think it has anything to do with creativity, man.
Well, let's be honest. Hold up. When I say creativity, I'm just saying to run into a 9-man box. You're right. Maybe I think sometimes when people say creativity, they think you're drawing up the Statue of Liberty play or what is it?
I don't need to see the triple reverse pass.
Yeah, I don't mean I mean all I'm saying is you can't run into a 9-man box. You're exactly right about that. I don't mean to. When I say creativity, I'm not asking.
So it should be unpredictability. Is that what you're going with, or lack of being predictable?
Right. Yeah. Just because it's South Carolina's not good enough to on 3rd and 1, 4th and 1 right now line up against the Kentucky or many teams in the SEC and just say, if you're going to put 9 in the box, we're just going to power through you and run. They can't do that. And it looks like right now
that's completely legit, Bill. And I feel like I feel like that's where these last 3 offensive coordinators have gotten to the place in their head where they've seen enough in preseason practice where offensive line is going against your defensive line or your second team defensive line to where you feel like you're going to get a push and you can count on your guys to make a play. And then when we've seen top line SEC defenses not allow that to happen, then there haven't been any answers. And I think that's where your call for creativity or just not being as predictable as all of us see it and say, hey, okay, well, they're probably just going to try to run the ball here. And then it doesn't work time and time again. And feel like you're just kind of ramming your head into the wall from the offensive coordinator standpoint. Is that kind of more your point?
Yeah, and I understand what you're saying. I don't mean, when I say creativity, again, I don't mean to. Yeah, we don't need to have the triple reverse throw back to the quarterback to the the lineman lined up as an eligible receiver down the field kind of play. But Marcus Satterfield's going to have to be a little bit more unpredictable. South Carolina can't line up on 3rd and 1, 4th and 1. They are having a level of success here in this game, running to the perimeter and picking up 2 to 6 yards on a carry. There's several situations where South Carolina gets into 2nd and 4 and converts. I just saw even South Carolina after the Jalen Foster interception. South Carolina, Luke Doty handles a blitz up the middle pretty well, gets it off to Kevin Harris over the middle, and South Carolina's able to get out of the shadow of their goal line. Then they actually run a kind of a sprint out play for Luke Doty, and he finds Rico Powers on the sideline. There's some things there that I think are interesting with the offense. They've got to get it more in sync, and they've got to do it quickly. Now I'm a little bit more interested to see them this weekend if they can take some of, and there was some positive things. That touchdown drive, there's some things that if you go back and rewatch this first half and really just focus in on what they're doing, that I feel like you can take some positive momentum from, and you've got to narrow it down to that and say, this is what we're going to focus on.
803-404-6100. If you would like to weigh in, you can call or text. Chad doing that on the YouTube live stream. Tim, I understand chance. But Georgia and Alabama, who have talent, don't have to be creative because they have talent. When you know you're up against better talent, you have to be creative. And that's kind of the point, Bill. But that's, I guess, back to my point, is that I feel like we've now seen 3 offensive coordinators in a row who either refuse to believe that or have evidence to the contrary from practice that that shows them that their offensive line can be a unit that they can rely on in these short yardage situations. And just consistently, we haven't seen success with that. Maybe, I guess, you give Mike Bobo and company some credit last year for being able to run the ball pretty consistently, but to sustain drives, Bill, and to get that play count over 51 from an offensive standpoint, which is just pretty about as low as you can get in college football, that you're going to have to execute on third down. And what you're saying, I think it only adds to frustration as opposed to the opposite. Like, to be in these third and manageables or third and shorts and to consistently not come through and make plays. I guess you got to give Kentucky a bunch of credit as well on the other side, but
me too.
man, that's frustrating to watch time after time after time, as opposed to the other one's really frustrating too. I feel like that happened more in East Carolina, where they continually made mistakes and got themselves in third and longs. You don't convert those. That is, to me, more explainable or maybe even more digestible than not being able to come up in third and short time after time.
I'm not sitting here breaking down. I don't have a pad and a pen and writing everything down. But what I do feel like I'm seeing, and if somebody wants to take the time and send it in, we'd love for you to do some homework. It feels like I'm watching more perimeter runs against Kentucky than I saw against East Carolina. Against East Carolina, it did feel like South Carolina was trying to just run it right up the middle. Just, hey, we're just going to dominate you right in the middle of the line, and they couldn't do it. They simply couldn't do it. It feels like here South Carolina is making more of an effort on Saturday night to get to the perimeter on most plays. Now, I'm about to start the second half, and I'll sit here and watch this. I have not gotten to the – I was talking about the third and one and the fourth and one in the first half that South Carolina doesn't convert. Well, Tim, we already know there's going to be a third and one and a fourth and one in the fourth quarter. They don't convert as well, in which they try and run the little zone handoff up the gut. So that's going to make them, at least from what I know, 0 for 5 on third and fourth and less than 3. That appears to be a massive problem for South Carolina right now. It's interesting. You go back and you watch the game now and you just focus in on certain parts. If people have time, I realize people have kids and bedtimes they've got to do at night, and not everybody can sit here at 8:43 in the morning and just rewatch a football game and try and break it down. But it is kind of interesting to see.
That would be the weirdest humble brag of all time, right? Most educated fan base out there. No one does film study like the Gamecock fan base.
Yeah.
B from Columbia, Texas, says, just curious about how the loss impacts recruiting. We had a lot of recruits there, one in particular in Dane Key, who has us in Kentucky as the top schools, and we lose the game with an embarrassing offensive performance. Bill, this has got to be that old, typically one game's results doesn't have much of an impact, if any at all, on the recruiting process in general. Would you agree with that kind of old cliche, or you see it differently?
No, I can agree with that. I'll get on board. I don't know if there's much difference in that at all.
To me, it was more important that the Gamecocks had a sellout or near sellout at least, and the environment was what it was on Saturday night. I think the part that would have been really difficult to overcome in recruiting is if you have 10,000 empty seats or something to that effect.
Right. Yeah.
You don't have the environment that Carolina did have. And again, the Gamecock fans deserve all the credit. Shane Beamer clearly called for that and asked for that at his weekly press conference, addressed Gamecock Nation directly, and he got what he was looking for from that standpoint. And I've seen a bunch of social media videos from players on their visits that were impressed, their players and their families, and talking about what a good experience they had overall. I think that's probably the more important part than Carolina executing on third and short consistently when you're talking about the recruiting standpoint. Again, 803-404-6100. If you'd like to get in a final word, dramatic conclusion of the show. Coming up next, it's the early game on 107.5.
Live, local, and free. That's how we do sports. 107.5.
Attaboy, Trey. Next year, you'll have to crack an hour. You can do it. And Bill is not even getting out of his bed here the last few days. I don't think we're going to get him to run the bridge run next year.
We'll see. We'll see.
I think we got to start with a 1K before we can get up to the 10K.
Well, I've walked a lot the last 3 days, and I think that's part of the soreness issue right now.
$18.08 an hour starting. Day one, including health and life insurance, 401k, on-site health care through June. Apply for the manufacturer professional and maintenance technician positions at redfc.org/vision.
Patrick, everything smooth there in the studio? You can tell?
Yep.
Except for that Vox Pro computer?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think anyone's attempted to fix it. It said not working since Friday.
Thank you.
There's nothing like the fun, excitement, and action of Gamecock football. As the home of Gamecock football, 107.5 The Game delivers those thrills daily to the Gamecock fan base. There's no better place to reach out to that fan base and let them know about your business than 107.5 The Game. Hi, this is Scott from Gamecock Community. Advertising is essential for our business to grow and develop a customer base. 107.5.
I don't think that's the personnel you want on the field there, Rodney. I mean, if you're splitting out 5 guys wide, who are you confident in making a play?
I don't know, but Juju McCall shouldn't be staying in to block.
No.
Right, the top 5, maybe you would put Juju in that top 5 spreading out wide who might make a play, right?
Yeah, I mean,
clearly the coaching staff thinks Jalen Brooks and the Kerryon Joyner are the top 2 wide receivers, right? Oh, sorry, Josh Vann and Jalen Brooks, maybe. Juju McDowell, Muse, and Jaheim Bell. Maybe you split those 5 guys out wide.
the attempted block on the second sack by Juju McDowell was brutal.
Yeah, that was.
I mean, the dude he weighs 180?
Yeah. Not like the defensive back was a big dude either. He just juked him out.
Alan, the atmosphere matters big time. More than the W's and L's. They matter. But I'd say, 80-20, Bill? Where would you put the percentage?
Yeah, a lot of high school kids. I mean, unless you just get reamed. A lot of high school kids, they're looking at the atmosphere. A lot of high school kids look at it like, hey, I can come in there and make them better. I can win. That's why you see what Georgia is about to have 4 5-star quarterbacks or something next year. Like, that makes no sense whatsoever.
Because the recruiting pitch is early playing time too. It matters big time.
Well, and that's the perfect example is they're recruiting Arch Manning with all those guys, and they're like, oh yeah, we're recruiting around you both for the present and the future. Well, what about the other dudes?
Right.
Poor other guys. Nobody thought about them for the present or the future.
You're up.
Interesting take on Twitter from Darren at SimHill1075, where he hit me up, says, once the kinks get worked out, I feel sure the fan base will be satisfied. It goes with a patience grasshopper gif or gif. This coming to the response to the poll question this morning. How do you feel about the future of Gamecock football after the first month of the season? Those results going final right about now. I'll give you the final results here in the final few minutes of the program. But 2-2. Patrick, if I had to put my money on it, that's exactly the record that I would have given the Gamecocks after 4 games. We both predicted 5-7. Bill, you went 6-6. So I think you had a win against Kentucky and might have predicted 3-1. Is that where you were?
I think I did. I think that was Patrick. I think that was the difference in our schedules. I picked a Kentucky win. I can't remember if I did or didn't. I know I had 6, and I thought I might have picked an Auburn victory. I can't remember if I picked Auburn as 6 and a loss to Kentucky. We didn't write down the individual games, did we?
Speaking of that, while Patrick is looking, do you have?
No, we didn't write them down, but I said them.
Do you have the over-unders for the season there? Like we went back and did the SEC teams? You don't have it in front of you?
No, they are in my room, though.
Question did pop up about Arkansas's over-under from a Vegas perspective.
5.5.
Okay, they're at 4 wins already through 4 games. And those wins over Texas and Texas A&M, I will maintain, has Sam Pittman a whole lot of favor amongst the Arkansas fan base, no matter how the rest of the season goes. Will be interesting I think they're the most interesting team in college football, and it's not even close right now. At least from the positive side of things. I guess on the other side, you could go Florida State right now in its program, or a variety of ways of programs that have disappointed through the first month of the season. Clemson kind of leading that list as well. The poll question results: a long path to the top ends up with 56% of the vote this morning about how do you feel about the future of Gamecock football after the first month of the season. In second place, with 22% of the vote, still not sure. So that's what, by my math, 78% of the voters today going either a long path to the top or still not sure. About 15% of you in third place were going, will win big soon. And fourth place, with 7% of the vote still getting over Kentucky loss. So the impact of that game, and maybe it's just because we're sitting here on a Tuesday, not too long afterwards, is massive, Bill, kind of to your point about how a lot of people pointing to the Kentucky game in 2021 as a huge measuring stick for Shane Beamer and his coaching staff in year 1.
It was, but that's just the general perception of Kentucky. This, as a program. Again, I said last week, and we all disagreed. You two completely disagreed with me about, what was the exact question? Beating Kentucky versus beating Tennessee. And, the general feeling for me was that Kentucky, is ahead of South Carolina. It kind of is what it is. But you need to beat Tennessee this year because that's who you're competing with to climb over. Those are the 2 programs that are closer. That's still out there. And we'll see. I'll be interested again to hear Shane Beamer today. And I think some of the people I'm totally with, I forget who all said it today, that it's kind of a week-by-week thing. What does the football team look like this week? How does Shane Beamer now, when you start 2-0, it's easy to go through practice, right, and to get fired up for the next game. But when you lose back-to-back games, you lose a game like that on Saturday, I don't know what to expect, by the way, from the crowd and atmosphere this coming weekend. Can Shane Beamer get his team fired back up and go back out and understand you got a chance to get right back above 500? There's a lot to play for South Carolina the next 3 weeks. There can be a lot of happy Gamecock fans if you're 5-2 going to College Station on October 23rd.
Troy, Tennessee, Vandy, next 3 weeks. This week, 3:30 kick against Troy. You'll hear a lot more about that from Shane Beamer in his weekly press conference, 1:15. We'll have it for you live right here on 107.5 The Game. Dan Patrick Show coming up next. As usual, we're back local at noon with the Extra Point. Pearson Fowler and Preston Thorne. Thanks for listening to the early game here on 107.5 The Game. Patrick, heck of a job pushing the buttons in the Burton Chevrolet store.
I appreciate it.
Anthony, thanks as always for the positive feedback. Guys, appreciate all the interaction this morning on the live stream. I'm on fire. They switched something up on Twitter. I guess Periscope is something different now with the live stream, and I got to figure out how to get it back on Twitter. But I will hopefully have that figured out by tomorrow or in the next couple of days. So YouTube, Facebook Live it is. Alan, no more Kentucky talk, LOL. There'll definitely be more Kentucky talk. I mean, we're not going to be breaking down Troy X's and O's here for the next 72 hours. We'll do what we can, though, for you. All right, any final words there, Patrick? Look like you're getting in a final yawn. Bedtime for you?
Bedtime, for sure.
Thanks for doing the close and the open, man. Nice work.